Hello, everyone. Tonight we're going to travel back in time, not to see kings or castles, not to study plagues or pitchforks, but to learn how people in the medieval ages flirted. Or well tried to. And spoiler alert, you might not survive this journey. Not because of dragons or bandits, but because romance in the Middle Ages involved more goat droppings and hay allergies than you'd expect. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I don't hear. And hey, comment where you're listening from and what time it is, because someone somewhere is probably trying to fall asleep while thinking about peasants making hard eyes across a pig pen. Now dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You're standing in a field, not a poetic field of tulips and gentle wind, but a field that smells deeply, almost spiritually, of wet soil, sheep, and the undeniable musk of medieval productivity. You are not a knight. You are not even a squire. You are most likely a fairly average person in a fairly average village in the year, let's say 1283, and you're thinking about love. You're also thinking about how your boots are leaking and you haven't bathed in 2 weeks, but love surprisingly is holding its ground in your mind. There's someone you like. You've seen them walking toward the well every third morning, balancing 2 wooden buckets like it's an Olympic sport. Their hair glistens, not with shampoo, but with honest-to-goodness sweat. And when they smiled at you last Tuesday, your knees didn't exactly go weak, but they did bend a little because you were standing on a loose potato. So the question becomes, what do you do? Well, courtship back then didn't begin with roses or playlists. It started with proximity, the kind where you accidentally show up wherever they are, gathering kindling. You were just thinking of making a fire, walking to the market. You suddenly need a turnip. You pretend not to look, they pretend not to notice, but you're both painfully aware that something's brewing, something very slow, very shy, and very muddy. Your first real interaction might be under extremely unsexy circumstances, like helping them lift a cow's backside because it got stuck in the fence again. Or maybe passing them a bundle of herbs while your hands are covered in flour and regret. Still, there's a rhythm to this life, and in that rhythm, tiny gestures mean everything. Leaving a bit of bread wrapped in cloth outside someone's door. That's basically a love letter. Fixing their leaking roof without asking. That's practically a proposal. And let's not forget the role of local gossip. Because in a town of 94 people, privacy is a luxury no one affords. If you so much as glance too long at someone during Sunday Mass, there will be at least 3 women whispering about it before the priest finishes his sermon. So your budding romance grows, slowly, hidden between chores and seasons. It lives in shared chores, harvesting, washing, mending. It grows during the few festivals of the year where dancing happens in pairs and someone plays an out-of-tune flute while 3 drunk uncles yell faster. It's during these festivals that you make your boldest move, offering your hand. Not for marriage yet, but to dance. They accept, your hands touch. And in that brief, sweaty moment of connection, something ancient passes between you. It's not chemistry. It's not electricity. It's more like damp wool and hope. Later, you'll walk them home 5 steps behind, of course, because propriety. And if you're lucky, they'll turn around at the door and say something sweet like, "Don't forget to boil your boots before winter," which in this context is the equivalent of "I'm thinking about you." But medieval love wasn't just about courtship. It was also about waiting. There's no texting, no calling, no secret Instagram stories where they post vague quotes about heartbreak. You don't hear from them for weeks. Maybe they're sick. Maybe they're helping a cousin in the next village. Maybe their family doesn't like yours because of that incident with the cheese cart. And so you wait. And when you see them again hauling firewood like it's no big deal, you pretend it hasn't been 18 nights of tossing and turning and whispering their name into the hay. They smile. You nod. The world keeps spinning. Eventually, if things go well and your goats haven't offended their goats, you might start thinking about something serious. Not Netflix and chill serious. We're talking merge our plowshares and combine grain stores serious, marriage. But let's not get ahead of ourselves. You're still in the early days. Still dreaming about their elbows. Still imagining what they smell like when they're not covered in sheep oil and nettle paste. So you continue with the quiet rituals of affection. Maybe you carve their initials on a piece of bark. Maybe you leave a small flower on their stool at the community oven. Maybe you just keep showing up again and again, offering your time, your labor, your gentle glances in the direction of their slightly lopsided smile. And maybe they'll do the same. That's how love begins here. Not with grand gestures or stolen kisses, but with the slow accumulation of care of shared mornings and silent agreements made beneath the weight of water buckets and the blessing of no one falling into the well. Your morning starts with the sound of chickens arguing outside your window, or more accurately, your wall with a hole. You rise with the sun, or more precisely slightly after it, because you're not trying to win any awards for punctuality. You throw on your tunic, which smells like last week's soup, and step out into the village. Today is special. Today you've heard there will be a market square gathering, a few traveling merchants, maybe even a bard with two functional strings on his lute. But more importantly, you know they will be there. The person you've been semi-accidentally bumping into at the well, the one whose laugh sounds like someone gently dropping a basket of plums, the one who recently handed you a turnip and said, "This reminded me of you," which you chose to interpret as a compliment. You rehearse what you'll say, something casual, like "nice hat," or "did you hear about the goose that stole Sister Agnes's bread?" Very subtle. Definitely not weird. As the village gathers, you try to look natural while lurking near the honey stall. You scan the crowd, mostly beards and elbows, until you spot them casually chatting with a woman who raises goats and eyebrows. You wave. They wave back. You forget how to walk and nearly trip over a child with a duck on a leash. Eventually, you end up next to them, pretending to examine onions, like your future depends on it. You exchange greetings, both of you acutely aware of the intense importance of this meaningless conversation. "Busy today," you say. "Very," they reply. Silence. A goat sneezes. Then the magic happens. They ask if you've tried the honey cake from the south end of the square. You haven't. You lie and say you have, but that you wouldn't mind trying it again together. And so your first unofficial date begins. No candles, no violins. Just two people awkwardly eating dense cake on a log while being watched by three curious children and one judgmental goose. Still, it's something. A shared moment in a world where time is measured by crop cycles and gossip. As the day winds down, the crowd thins. A couple argues about who spilled meat on the donkey. Someone sings a song about lost shoes. You and your companion linger near the edge of the square, both pretending there's something left to look at. They ask about your family. You ask about theirs. You learn that their uncle once tried to invent a cheese-powered wagon. You offer a smile so warm it could bake bread. You want to say something real, something meaningful. But this isn't the age of heartfelt text messages or midnight voicemails. Here you speak in metaphors and gestures, in borrowed proverbs about stars and seasons. So you say, "I hope the frost comes late this year." And they reply, "So do I." It means nothing. It means everything. You walk them home, or at least halfway, because too much walking together can set tongues wagging. You stop beneath a crooked tree and part ways with a nod, maybe a gentle touch on the arm if you're feeling particularly bold. As you walk back to your cottage, the moon rising behind you like a peeled turnip, you feel light, hopeful, a little itchy, but that's probably the hay. Over the next few days, you find yourself noticing new things. How they braid their hair on feast days. The way they hum while grinding flour. How they always save the last piece of fruit for someone else. You wonder if they think about you. You wonder if their family would approve. You wonder if your roof could handle a second person sleeping under it, assuming they don't mind leaks or mice with attitudes. Of course, it's not all romantic daydreams. There are still chores to do, animals to feed, a compost heap that is aggressively expanding. But through it all, the memory of the cake log moment lingers. Sweet, heavy, slightly sticky. Soon the harvest festival approaches. It's the social event of the season. Dancing, drinking. Possibly someone falling into a fire pit, but in a fun way. This is your chance. Your moment. You plan everything, your cleanest tunic, your nicest pair of socks, meaning the ones with fewer holes and a clever line about barley that you hope comes off as charming. You spot them near the fire, laughing with someone who wears suspiciously nice boots. You hesitate. You doubt. You nearly turn back, but then they see you and their face lights up like an oven on bread day. You walk over. You say hello. They offer you their hand. You dance. It's clumsy, full of missteps and stumbles, but it's perfect in its imperfection. You laugh and they laugh, and in that spinning chaos of song and smoke, something solid is forming. You don't know what will come next. A long courtship, a sudden proposal, a setback involving a runaway pig. But tonight you dance, and that's more than enough. The next morning your back is sore, your feet are sore, and you're still smiling like someone who just discovered the concept of soup. You dance, not well, but enthusiastically, and most importantly, you dance with them. The entire village seems to know. The baker winks at you while handing over your loaf. A child runs by chanting something that rhymes suspiciously with your name in romance. Even the pig near the well gives you a knowing grunt. You try to act casual, but your stomach does that little medieval flip every time you think of their hand in yours, the way their fingers fit, like they've been carved for your calluses. There's a rhythm to the days that follow, a quiet familiarity. You see them more often now, not just at the well or the market, but during chores, during walks, during the in-between hours when people pretend they aren't looking for company. You help them carry a basket of beans. They bring you a bit of dried apple wrapped in cloth. You leave a flower on their windowsill. They pretend not to see it and then mention hours later that some birds have surprisingly good taste. But no one says anything direct. That's not how things work here. No one says I like you. Instead, you build a fence together and hope the angle of your elbow says enough. No one asks, do you want to be with me? They just keep showing up even when it rains. There's a day midweek, midsummer when the sky turns strange. A quiet fog rolls over the hills, softening the world like a blanket thrown over a sharp table. You find them at the edge of the woods gathering firewood. You don't say anything. You just join them, falling into an easy silence where everything important is already understood. Afterward, you sit by the stream. The moss is damp and your boots are leaking again, but you don't move. They pluck a leaf from the water and twirl it between their fingers. My grandmother says if you find a leaf shaped like a heart and it floats upstream, your love will be true, they say. You raise an eyebrow, and if it sinks, then you're just wet and sad. You both laugh, but there's something underneath. A weight you haven't named yet. Because this, whatever this is, can't stay in the realm of breadcrumbs and wood piles forever. At some point, it has to become something real. And that means facing what real looks like here. Because medieval romance doesn't come with guarantee scrolls or fairy godmothers. It comes with dowries and harvest schedules. It comes with nosy neighbors and livestock disputes. It comes with families. Ah, yes, families. Yours is complicated. Their cousin once accused your uncle of stealing 2 goats and a wheelbarrow. The goats are never found. The wheelbarrow is returned in pieces. You've kept your distance so far, but now things are inching closer to the point where names might be mentioned, where intentions might be declared. So you begin the most terrifying ritual of all, asking your family what they think. Your mother, unsurprisingly, has opinions. She asks if they can cook, if they have good teeth, if they look like they can carry firewood and children. You stare at the fire and try not to say, I love the way their eyes crinkle when they laugh. Not exactly a line item on her list of virtues. Your father grunts, which in his language is practically a sonnet. Your younger sibling draws hearts in the ash and says, you're blushing again. You consider moving to another village. Still you persevere, because something inside you says, this is worth it. You've never felt so nervous folding laundry, or more excited to peel turnips, and they seem to feel it too. One day they show up with a small carved spoon. It's simple, a little crooked, but it fits your hand perfectly. They say it's made by their grandfather, passed down to them, and now offered to you. You don't say anything, you just hold it, tighter than you need to. In medieval terms, this is equivalent to writing your names in the stars. You eat your next stew with it, it tastes the same, and yet better. That night you sit under the sky counting constellations shaped like oxen and oddly judgmental chickens. You wonder what's next. Because love in this age isn't something you declare with rose petals and string quartets. It's something you show again and again until it becomes fact. It's not dramatic, it's not glamorous, but it's real. And in this quiet, muddy, sweet-smelling life of yours, it's enough to make the world feel just a little warmer. Some mornings you wake up before the rooster, not because you're especially diligent, but because your dreams now involve too many turnips. You step outside into the cool hush of pre-dawn, and the village is still asleep, except for one soft candle glowing in a window you've come to recognize. Their window. You don't stare. Okay, maybe you glance a bit longer than necessary, but only because there's something comforting about knowing someone else is awake in the same silence. Maybe they're baking. Maybe they're reading one of the 2 books in town. Maybe they just couldn't sleep because they were also thinking about spoons and firewood and you. Later that day, you bump into them at the chicken shed. They're holding a small bundle of fresh eggs wrapped in cloth. You're holding a carrot that you claim is important. You exchange greetings that say nothing and everything. There's a pause. Then they speak. My aunt asked if we were planning anything official. Your mouth goes dry. The carrot does not help. They smile a little crooked. I told her it's none of her business. But maybe it will be. And that's how the topic of courtship finally enters the room. Quietly, almost sideways. But it's here now, and it isn't leaving. You don't answer immediately. You nod. You find a bench. You sit together beneath a thatched roof patched with love and desperation. You talk, not about love. No one says that word out loud yet, but about things that circle it like shy birds. You talk about families, about futures, about which goats are less annoying. You discover you both hate soggy bread and enjoy thunderstorms. You both dream of having a roof that doesn't whistle when it's windy. You both want to raise ducks one day, not for eating, just for the company. And then comes the trickiest question: what do you do next? Because in the medieval world, you can't just date indefinitely. That's not how things work. You either marry or you don't. And if you don't, people start asking questions. Loudly in public. So you begin negotiations. First with their family. You meet their parents. You bring gifts, bread, a jar of something pickled, and your best smile. Their mother inspects you like a loaf she's not quite sure about. Their father doesn't speak for the first 10 minutes, then asks how many chickens you've personally kept alive. You answer honestly, which is a mistake, but they seem to appreciate your lack of ego. Then it's your turn. They visit your home. Your mother cleans frantically. Your father wears his good tunic, which is still terrible, but at least it's not on fire. Everyone is polite in the way people are when there's a lot at stake and no one trusts each other's stew. There are no fireworks, no instant approvals, but there's no outright refusal either. In this time, that's basically a green light. You and your beloved, yes, we can start calling them that, now begin the process. You plan a union, no rings, no white dresses, no doves flying overhead, just conversations about where to live. Who brings what to the shared household? Whether you'll use their grandmother's bed or build a new one out of emotionally complex lumber. The village starts to buzz. Children run past you singing made-up wedding songs. Strangers nod at you in that way that says, we know, we've always known, and we have opinions. Still, you walk through it together. You walk through it all. One evening as the sun turns the village golden and the sky begins to yawn, you both sit beneath an apple tree that only sometimes drops fruit without warning. They turn to you. If we do this, they say, let's promise something. You nod curious. Let's promise never to stop being weird about it. Let's keep bringing each other turnips. Let's keep pretending we're not sure when we're obviously sure. Let's keep laughing when the soup is bad. You smile. And in that moment, without witnesses or banners, you agree. Love here isn't about ceremony. It's about showing up, sitting close, sharing silence, sharing soup. It's about knowing that in a world full of goats' mud chores and the occasional unfairly aggressive duck, you found someone whose presence makes all of that feel like the setup to a very good story. Your story. There's something oddly romantic about washing your face in a wooden bowl beside someone who once saw you fall into a cabbage patch. Your days begin together now, even if you still live apart. You wake knowing they'll be at the market stall by sunrise, trading dried apples for salt. You pass each other like clock hands, brushing fingertips as you trade errands, bundles, and glances that say, I see you even if you're holding a goat. But now the talk has shifted. The village knows. Your families know. Even the chickens seem more judgmental. And so the next step, an official intention to wed, which in the Middle Ages is a ceremony in itself, not the wedding, mind you, but the declaration. It's called a handfasting in some regions, or simply making it known in others. It involves standing up in front of your entire community, clasping hands, and having a very serious man say very serious things about promises, barley, and eternal responsibility. Before that, though, comes the prep. There's no wedding planner, no calligraphy invitations. But there are chickens to slaughter, ale to brew, and at least one neighbor who insists you need a decorative gourd. You spend the next few days elbow deep in logistics. Your mother insists the beans must be soaked 3 full nights for the stew to taste like marriage. Your father, who hasn't spoken more than 12 words since winter, suddenly becomes emotionally invested in building a ceremonial bench. You don't ask questions. Your beloved is no less busy. They're embroidering something, maybe your initials, maybe a very determined duck. You don't want to interrupt. And then comes the moment, the declaration. You stand in the village square in clothes that don't itch too much, holding hands under the gaze of people who have known you since you had an unfortunate haircut at age 7. The speaker, usually a priest, a mayor, or someone who's loud and wears a hat, asks if you intend to wed. You both say yes. The crowd murmurs approval like a hive of bees trying to decide if you're sweet enough. Someone throws dried flowers. Someone else throws what might be breadcrumbs. A child shouts, "Are you going to kiss?" and is swiftly removed by a grandmother. But yes, you do kiss. It's quick, awkward, beautiful. The kind of kiss that says, "This is real now. This is happening." From that moment on, you are known as the couple. No longer potential, no longer speculative. You are publicly, officially, awkwardly in love. The days after the declaration are filled with a strange, floaty tension. You're not married yet, but everyone treats you like you are. People ask if you're going to move in together. Not yet rules. People give you advice you didn't ask for. Always sleep with your feet pointing away from the door. It keeps the spirits confused. You nod. You smile. You wonder if the next few weeks will feel longer than winter. And yet, it's not bad. There's comfort in being seen, in having your affection given shape and name, and cabbage stew at every meal. You and your partner start planning the wedding not in a frantic, ribbon-covered way, but in quiet snippets. You'll use your family's barn. You'll invite everyone except Old Man Edric, who once shouted at a cloud for being too fluffy. You'll wear your nicest tunic. They'll wear whatever makes them feel like the world is folding gently around them. And you'll promise each other not just in front of people, but in front of time, because this is it. No backup plans. No, if this doesn't work out. Just you, them, and the belief that love is something worth planting, even if the soil is rocky and full of worms. One night as you sit side by side outside your door, passing a loaf back and forth and watching the stars do their sleepy shuffle, they lean in and whisper, "Did you ever think it would feel this simple?" You don't answer right away, because it doesn't feel simple. It feels enormous, heavy and light, like a basket of apples balanced on a tightrope. But it looks simple, and that's what makes it so beautiful. So you nod, you smile, you break off another piece of bread and hand it to them like it's the most sacred thing you own, because it is. The morning of your wedding begins with a chicken screaming, not in terror probably, just in celebration, or confusion, or the simple joy of being alive in a village where love occasionally happens and animals don't understand boundaries. You wake early though you didn't sleep much. You lay in the dark for hours listening to the wind thread through the roof, feeling your heart beat like it's trying to churn butter in your chest. Today's the day you shift from that person who keeps showing up to that person who now shares responsibility for all the missing spoons. You rise, you dress. Your wedding outfit is, to put it kindly, humble. No lace, no crown. Just your best tunic cleaned twice and boots that only squeak a little when you walk. You smell like soapwort and hope. That's as good as it gets. Outside, the village is buzzing. Children climb barrels. Grandmothers rearrange herbs that were already perfectly fine. Someone's trying to catch a goose that refuses to be ceremonial. It's perfect chaos. You meet your beloved in the center of it all. They look warm, not in the dramatic, mythical way. Just warm, like home, like safety, like a hearth after a hard frost. Their clothes are simple. Their smile isn't. You exchange a look, and it's the same look you've shared 100 times at the well in the field beneath the tree where you first said nothing that meant everything. But this time, everyone's watching. The ceremony begins beneath the big tree near the stream. The same tree you once sat under and talked about ducks and dumb promises that suddenly feel very wise. The priest or village elder or whichever person owns the loudest stick stands between you, reading words that sound like thunder disguised as poetry. You hold hands, you say vows, simple ones. Honest, you promise to work together, to laugh at bad bread, to pull splinters out of each other's hands without blaming the other for poor hammer aim. You promise not perfection, but presence, not romance as a performance, but love as a habit. They say their vows and your breath catches because it's them, saying things you didn't know you needed to hear, promising to see you, to choose you, even when life is muddy and smells vaguely of cabbage. Then the moment, you are declared bound, united, partners in life and labor in the never-ending search for dry firewood. The crowd cheers, someone drops a pie, you kiss. This time you don't care if the goose is watching. The feast afterward is glorious, in a medieval, slightly sticky way. There's stew, there's bread, there's a vat of cider large enough to bathe in, though no one does this time. People bring gifts: a blanket that smells like old herbs, a ceramic mug with half a handle, a chicken named Winifred, who may or may not lay eggs depending on her mood. You sit together at a table made of two doors lashed with twine. You hold hands under the table. You exchange looks over every spilled dish, every off-key song, every toast that devolves into a story about someone's neighbor's goat. It's perfect. And when the stars arrive slowly, politely, you sneak away. You don't go far, just to the edge of the field. The same path you've walked 100 times before, except now it feels different. Yours shared. They stop beneath a tree. You stop beside them. You don't say much. You don't have to. The air is cool. The moon is soft. Your heart for once isn't doing acrobatics. It's just quiet. Steady. Later, as you walk back toward your shared home, a small cottage with one door, two windows, and a wildly judgmental cat, they squeeze your hand and say, "Do you think this is what forever feels like?" You think about it, and you say, "I think this is what starting feels like." They smile, and the cat waiting on the stoop meows disapprovingly, as if to say, "Took you long enough." You laugh. You go inside. Together. Married life, as it turns out, begins not with fireworks or endless embraces, but with the sudden jarring discovery that your partner snores like a windmill with indigestion. The first night is warm. The blankets are rough. The air smells like herbs, wood smoke, and just a hint of goat. You lie awake for a while, staring at the thatched ceiling, wondering if love is supposed to sound like this. Still, you don't mind. Mostly, you adjust, you shift, you eventually drift off, and when you wake, it's to the sight of them curled beside you. Their hair a little tangled, their mouth slightly open, looking like a saint who wrestled a sack of flour in their sleep. You think, yes, I'd do this again. Life continues, but different now. You have routines shared, overlapping, chaotic. You discover that they like to hum when chopping vegetables, that they store dried herbs in places no one should ever store anything, that they somehow always lose one sock even when socks are rare and precious like salt. You build a rhythm. You milk the goat while they patch the roof. You gather firewood while they trade cloth for beans. You argue mildly about whether you should replant the cabbage or just give up and grow moss. You make decisions together, and somehow that becomes the most intimate thing of all. There are good days. Days when the bread rises perfectly, when the weather smiles kindly, when the neighbor's drama is so juicy that even the birds seem to eavesdrop. And there are hard days, when the rain won't stop, when the roof leaks again, when your backs ache and your hands blister and you feel like two sacks of potatoes pretending to be humans, but always there's them, sitting beside you, sharing the same soup, the same silence. One evening as you sit outside watching the clouds roll across the sky like lazy sheep, they say, "Do you ever miss being single?" You pause. Because it's a fair question. You miss the space sometimes, the quiet, the ability to eat all the berries without sharing. But then you look at them, hair pulled back, with a piece of string sleeves rolled up, face soft in the dimming light. And you say, "No, not really, do you?" They smile. Only when you take the last piece of bread. You both laugh. It becomes your joke. "I miss being single," said every time one of you forgets to refill the water barrel, or burns the porridge, or accidentally lets the sheep into the pantry. Marriage in this age isn't roses and candlelight. It's scraped knees and shared chores. It's helping each other out of mud pits and pretending not to notice when someone passes gas during dinner. It's real and messy and absolutely worth it. And then comes your first winter together. You brace for it like an incoming storm, which, to be fair, it is. You chop wood. You seal the windows with old rags and newer prayers. You dry mushrooms like they're precious gemstones. The nights stretch long and quiet. You play games by firelight. You tell stories, some true, some wildly embellished. You talk about everything, about nothing. You plan next year's garden. You argue about which part of the roof needs fixing first. You imagine what it'd be like to raise a duck that can count. And one night as the wind howls outside and the stew bubbles gently beside you, they look up and ask, "Do you think we'll still be like this in 10 winters?" You consider. You picture grayer hair, slower steps, deeper laugh lines and thicker blankets. You picture hands still reaching for each other in the dark. You say, "I hope so." They nod, eyes, half-lidded voice, soft, "Me too." You reach out. You hold their hand. Not tightly, just enough to say, "I'm here." Outside, the wind sighs, the world turns. And in your little cottage, love settles in for the long haul, quietly, gently, like a cat curling by the fire. Winter stretches like a heavy wool blanket, coarse, persistent, and always slightly damp at the corners. Days grow short, nights grow long, and time becomes a slow, syrupy thing, dripping from one moment to the next. You and your partner fall into a rhythm of warmth, not the kind from bonfires or dancing those are for the young and reckless. No, this is hearth warmth, bread warmth, the kind that comes from shared blankets and shared silence and the occasional foot finding yours under the table. You learn the art of surviving winter, not by enduring it, but by leaning into it. You cook meals slowly sometimes just to keep the oven warm. Root vegetables, thick broths, everything tastes faintly of time, even if you didn't put any in. They hum while stirring, and you add more salt than necessary just to see them pretend not to notice. On stormy days, you sit by the window wrapped in a wool shawl that was once a curtain. You carve. They mend, and occasionally one of you sighs dramatically for no reason at all, prompting the other to reply, "Don't be so theatrical. We still have 3 cabbages left." Cabbage incidentally becomes a third roommate. Boiled, fried, fermented, every form of cabbage appears on your plate until you start seeing it in your dreams, asking philosophical questions, and judging your haircut. But that's winter, repetitive, cozy, a little smelly. And then just when you think you can't take another gray sky or frozen boot comes a change. A single drip from the roof, a crow cawing at dawn, a soft squelch in the garden where snow used to be. Spring. And with spring mud, so much mud. The world unfreezes in the most undignified way possible. Everything smells vaguely of compost and future hope. You and your partner greet it like old friends greeting a very messy toddler. You plant things. Peas, onions, a handful of seeds you don't recognize but that look like they wanted to grow. You repair fences that didn't survive the frost. You argue about whether the shovel is technically broken or just developing character. And somewhere in that mess between muddy boots and sun-chapped noses, you fall in love again. Not newly, but deeper, because now it's not about the butterflies or the shared honey cakes. It's about how you hand each other tools, how you work in silence and know exactly when to pass the water jug, how their hands, dirt-streaked and calloused, feel like home when they brush your back in passing. One afternoon, while you're both in the garden, you find a bird nest tucked into the wall. Tiny, unfinished, made of twigs and what appears to be a stolen piece of your laundry string. You show it to them. They smile, eyes crinkling in that way that still makes your chest ache. Well, they say at least someone's moving in. You glance at them. "We have room." They glance back. "Do we?" You nod. And that's how the conversation begins. Not the one about birds, the one about you two. Expanding. You don't rush. You don't panic. You just begin talking slowly over days and nights and soggy cabbage dinners. About what it might mean to have more than 2 pairs of boots by the door. More than one voice singing off-key near the hearth. About how love like the garden doesn't stay still. It grows. Messy, unexpected, with the occasional squirrel invasion, but still it grows. That night you sit beneath the stars, your knees touching your hands, smelling of earth and dreams. You lean your head on their shoulder and say, "I think we'd be good at it." They reply, "At what?" And you say, "Growing something new." They don't answer for a moment. Then yeah, I think so too. You sit together for a while watching the stars blink like sleepy eyes. And somewhere nearby the bird finishes its nest. Spring, like most charming things, is also wildly unpredictable. One day you're planting beans in shirt sleeves under a warm sun. The next you're wrestling your laundry off the line while wine pelts you with last year's leaves. And what you swear is the same hat old man Edric lost in 1291. Still the days are longer, warmer, softer. You and your partner find yourselves talking more about someday. Someday we could get another goat. Someday we might build a second room. Someday we could teach someone else how to stir the stew without burning it. Someday becomes a quiet little visitor in your conversations, not loud or urgent, but consistent, like a neighbor who always waves on their way to the well. You haven't made any decisions, not yet, but the idea is there now, of adding someone, a child. And that idea, it shifts things. It makes you see your partner differently, not just as your favorite person, your co-survivor of soup disasters, but as someone who could teach small hands how to hold a spoon. Someone who might braid hair or build toys or explain why the moon doesn't fall out of the sky. Of course, life doesn't pause for possibilities. The sheep need shearing. The beans need weeding. The path to the stream collapses again because apparently the mud has a vendetta. But in between it all, you start preparing. A little. You fix the broken latch on the cupboard. You reorganize the linens twice. You start noticing which corners get the warmest sun in the afternoon. You also start watching the other families more. The woman who sings lullabies while scrubbing laundry. The father who carries a toddler on one hip and a bundle of sticks on the other. The chaos, the tenderness, the exhaustion that seems to shimmer behind every laugh. One afternoon, as you and your partner walk through the woods, gathering kindling, you pause beside a fallen log to rest. They sit arms draped across their knees, looking ahead at nothing in particular. After a while, they say, "You ever think we'd get this far?" You smile. Which part? The shared goat, the synchronized tea drinking, the almost having matching shoes. They chuckle, but their eyes stay soft. No, this part. Us. Still here. You lean against their shoulder. I didn't think we wouldn't. And then almost shyly, I think I'm ready. They look at you. And for a long moment, nothing needs to be said, because they know exactly what you mean. That night, you both sit by the fire silent, thoughtful. The kind of silence that isn't absence, but presence in its most gentle form. You talk, eventually, about what you want, about what scares you, about your childhood's scraped knees bedtime songs, the strange fear of cabbages with eyes. You talk about what kind of parents you might be. You imagine it, not the dream version, but the real one. Waking up tired, learning lullabies, teaching someone how to make soup badly but with love, reading the same story 10 times and still laughing at the goat that falls in the mud. The next morning you find an old cradle in the storage loft. It's dusty, crooked. One of the legs wobbles like it's trying to escape responsibility. But your partner sees it and says, "We can fix it." And you both begin together. You sand the edges, tighten the joints, stitch a blanket. No announcements, no big speeches. Just two people making space for something new, for someone new. You don't know when or how or if it will happen. But the space is there now, and that's enough to start. Summer rolls in, not like a quiet guest, but like a cousin who shows up uninvited, throws off their shoes, and eats all your cherries. The sun arrives in full force, baking the ground into cracked mosaics. The air grows thick, sweet with berry sweat in the occasional alarming scent from the compost pile. Everyone walks a little slower, talks a little softer, and dreams a little harder under the weight of the heat. You and your partner settle into the rhythm of the season. Mornings start early. Too early, honestly. The sun has no respect for sleep or newlyweds. You rise with the birds, though you suspect the birds are cheating by sleeping through their own songs. You haul water. You weed. You swear at the onions gently. Your partner sings while sweeping. Their voice rises with the dust catching in the sunbeams, like gold spun from tired lungs. Sometimes they hum the lullabies you spoke of in spring, and you pretend not to notice the way your heart curls around each note. The cradle is finished now, sitting in the corner of your one-room house like a question mark and a promise. You haven't told anyone yet. Not about your hopes, not about your quiet preparations, but the village has eyes. One day at the market, the baker hands you an extra bun for the road, though the road is 20 steps long. The candle maker winks and says, "Getting enough rest." The midwife, who you haven't spoken to since your ankle sprain last autumn, casually drops by with a basket of herbs, just in case you're nesting no pressure. You and your partner exchange a look. No words, just raised eyebrows and exhale and a shrug that says, "We might as well get used to this." Because preparing for a child, whether one is coming or not, isn't just about cradles and rumors. It's about shifting inward. You begin to notice your home differently. The low ceiling that once felt cozy now makes you duck. The bench near the hearth could use padding. The sharp edge on the cupboard corner suddenly seems like an enemy waiting in the dark. You fix what you can. Pad what you can't. Build new shelves you probably don't need, all while telling yourself it's just in case. But you both know. You know by the way your partner folds laundry with deliberate care, smoothing each wrinkle like a prayer. You know by the way you find yourself talking to the cradle in passing, narrating your day, like a bard trying to impress an audience of one. And then one night it happens. They place your hand over theirs over the curve of a belly that hasn't quite begun to show. Not much, just enough. And they whisper, I think it's real. You don't breathe at first, then you do, slowly, deeply. And you say the only thing that matters will be ready. You don't know when or how. There will be pain and mess and moments where everything feels like too much cabbage and not enough sleep. But for now, this moment, it's still. You hold each other in the candlelight, the world reduced to soft breathing and flickering shadows. Outside, the village sleeps. Inside, something begins, not with fanfare, not with magic, but with a quiet certainty, a life growing within a life. And in the middle of it all, two hands clasped, two hearts pacing themselves to the beat of something bigger than fear. Pregnancy in the Middle Ages isn't exactly a parade of scented candles and birthing classes. It's more like hope herbal tea and several people arguing over whether garlic should be hung above the door or worn in a pouch under the left armpit. Your partner is quieter these days. Not distant, just inward. Like a book being written one page at a time, spine creaking, ink drying slowly in the heat. You watch them carefully. Not because you're worried, though you are, but because everything they do now seems sacred in a way you don't fully understand. They walk a little slower. They eat a little more, sometimes turnips at midnight, sometimes apples dipped in honey while humming old lullabies. The cradle's been moved closer to the hearth. You both take turns dusting it, adjusting it, pretending not to stare at it, as if it might at any moment fill itself with laughter and tiny socks. The village reacts predictably. Some neighbors bring bread, others bring advice. A few bring alarming bundles of dried herbs that smell like sadness and wet feathers. The local priest congratulates you with a sermon about the circle of life, and then accidentally quotes a sheep proverb instead of scripture. But amidst the chaos, something gentle begins to take root. You and your partner become a unit in a new way. You work together with unspoken grace, passing tools, finishing each other's chores, knowing when to speak and when to simply be. You find yourself becoming more careful. You start to notice dips in the road you used to ignore. You pad the sharp edges of the hearthstone with cloth. You make a new stool with a backrest because comfort suddenly seems more important than fashion. Not that it was ever a contest. Your fashion options include brown or different brown. And your partner, they begin to glow. Not in the magical fairy tale way, not with glitter or ethereal light, but in the way candlelight glows in a safe room. Steady, quiet, unshakable. They tell you one evening, as the wind stirs through the shutters, sometimes I feel terrified. You don't try to fix it. You just nod. Me too, you say. You both sit there wrapped in the same blanket, drinking warm milk, staring at the fire like it might contain answers. And maybe it does. Answers in crackles and ash and orange flickers and shifting embers. Answers that say it won't be easy, but you won't be alone. The days pass in soft waves. You talk to the baby, both of you, sometimes at the same time overlapping like two poets with a single poem. You make silly voices. You tell them what the world is like. You promise them ridiculous things, a pet duck, 10 birthday pies, a house that never runs out of stories. The baby kicks for the first time during supper. You both freeze, then laugh, then cry just a little, quietly. You don't need to tell anyone, not yet. This is a moment just for you two, a shared secret between hearts and ribs and firelight. You sleep a little less, not from worry, just anticipation. You spend more time talking about names. Nothing decided yet, though you both agree Mudsworth is off the table, no matter how strong your great-uncle's legacy was. You dream more vividly. Dreams of lullabies sung under starlight. Dreams of three shadows walking hand in hand through wheat fields. Dreams of small fingers curling around yours like ivy on old stone. And in all of them, your partner is there. Still singing, still steady, still yours. Because even as life prepares to change, some things hold. Like love, like laughter, like the quiet promise whispered across a shared blanket. Whatever happens, we'll find a way. The heat finally breaks one morning with a rainstorm that feels less like weather and more like a full-body exhale from the sky. You and your partner wake to the sound of droplets tapping the roof, soft and steady like fingers drumming on an old drum skin. The air is cooler, sweeter, alive with the smell of wet earth and distant rosemary. The baby kicks again, more often now. You place your hand over their belly as if to say hello again. We're still here. You've started keeping track. Little marks on the wall tallying every flutter, like they're stars in a sky only the two of you can see. The villagers, of course, have noticed. They speak in lowered voices like the baby might be listening through the chimney. They offer odd congratulations. Hope it's got your ears, not your aim. Pray it's born before cabbage season. Have you picked a name yet? May I suggest Hilda the Unblinking? You thank them. You smile. You make a mental list of people who will not be babysitting. Your partner grows slower. Not weaker, just measured as if every step carries more meaning. They rest often now. You set up a small corner with cushions, dried lavender, and a rocking stool that only creaks slightly like it's haunted. You take on more chores. You gather. You clean. You learn how to boil linens without making them taste like stew. You even once attempt to knit. It goes badly. But they wear the lumpy square like it's royal silk, and that's enough to make you try again. The cradle becomes your evening project. It doesn't need more polishing, but you polish it anyway. Then you line it with a soft cloth made from your old tunic. The one they used to steal in the early days of courtship, back when everything smelled like barley and possibility. Sometimes they sit beside you while you work, head resting on your shoulder, hand resting on the curve of their belly. You say nothing, just listen to the rain, to their breath, to the tiny future waiting beneath your fingertips. One day the midwife visits, unannounced naturally, because nothing says welcome like a woman barging in with a basket of steaming claws and 7 stories about goats giving birth in inconvenient places. She checks the baby's position. She nods. She mutters something about soon. You and your partner glance at each other, then quickly away, because soon is different now. It used to mean when the bread rises or when the sun returns. Now it means when everything changes. You spend that evening preparing more herbs, more cloth, a list of items you'll absolutely forget the moment labor begins. A deep breath shared under the weight of approaching wonder. And then because it helps you talk about the kind of parents you want to be, about patience, about honesty, about letting the child choose whether they want to wear shoes or go full goblin in the mud. You promise to tell them stories, to teach them how to hold a spoon, how to sing in the rain, how to fall asleep with the sound of thunder in their chest and not be afraid. And later, once the candles burn low and your fingers have stopped trembling, you hold each other in the dark and whisper the same words you did on the day you wed. We'll figure it out, because you will. Even if the diapers are made of linen scraps and the lullabies are off key, even if the baby doesn't sleep and the goats do, even if the whole world seems to shift around this tiny hiccuping miracle, you'll figure it out together. And somewhere not far off, a soft heartbeat answers back. The first contraction arrives like a whisper, not a dramatic cry, not a lightning bolt, just a shift. Subtle, sure, like the first gust of wind before a storm that knows its own power. You're out in the yard trying unsuccessfully to convince a chicken to vacate the laundry basket when your partner calls your name. It's not urgent, just firm. You look over, they're standing still, hand resting on their belly, eyes wide but calm. It's time, they say, and somehow you know they're right. Everything after that moves both too fast and impossibly slow. The midwife is summoned, sent for by a neighbor's son who runs like his feet are on fire and his hair is chasing him. Water is boiled, herbs are bundled. The cradle is moved slightly to the left, then back again, just to feel useful. Your partner breathes. In and out, in and out. You try to match them, but mostly you just end up holding your breath and forgetting how chairs work. The labor lasts hours, maybe days. Time folds in on itself, and the walls of your home become the entire world. Every creak, every rustle, every quiet sound carries the weight of a future about to unfold. The midwife gives instructions in a voice that somehow manages to be both bark and lullaby. You wipe sweat. You whisper encouragement. You grip their hand like it's the only thing tethering you to the earth. And then a cry, small, sharp, alive. The sound slices through the air like sunlight through smoke. You don't cry, at least not immediately. You just sit there, stunned, as if someone handed you a star and asked you to hold it without letting it burn through your chest. The midwife places a bundled shape in your partner's arms. They look down, then look at you. Their eyes are wet, but their smile is the sun. The moon, the harvest, the fire, all at once. You inch closer. The baby is small, wrinkled, loud. Perfect. You reach out, carefully, as if the slightest touch might wake you from the most important dream of your life. Tiny fingers wrap around yours. You exhale. And in that moment, sitting on the floor, surrounded by herbs, rags, and 3 worried chickens watching from the window, you understand something new. This is love, yes. But this is also beginning. Not the end of your story. Not the climax of your courtship. Just the opening of a new chapter. One filled with sleepless nights and sticky hands. With lullabies mumbled through yawns. With first steps taken in lopsided shoes. With questions you can't answer. With joy you can't explain. You and your partner take turns holding the baby. They count toes. You count blessings. Someone outside the window starts playing a flute wildly off-key. You both laugh. Tired, giddy, terrified. The cradle, now full, squeaks softly as you lay the baby down for the first time. They blink up at the ceiling as if trying to memorize it. You all stay close that night, wrapped in blankets, wrapped in each other. You fall asleep listening to breaths. 3 of them now, a symphony, a promise. And though you know storms will come, though you know nothing will ever be quite the same, you feel ready. Not because you have all the answers, but because you have each other. And now you have them too. The first few days blur together like wet ink on old parchment. You sleep in shifts, or try to. Mostly you hover, you swaddle. You hum lullabies that fall apart halfway through because your brain is now a bowl of overcooked barley. The baby is loud, then quiet, then loud again. They cry like it's their only job, which to be fair it is. That and producing impressive amounts of laundry for someone who doesn't own pants. Your partner moves with care now. Slower, surer, like someone who has learned a new rhythm that the world can't yet hear. You watch them rock the baby beside the fire. Their hair is mussed. Their eyes are ringed with fatigue, and still they glow. Not like a storybook goddess, but like a candle that refuses to go out no matter how drafty the room becomes. You step in as often as you can. You change claws. You shush. You invent a voice for a stuffed woolen goose named Sir Honk-a-Lot. You sing the same silly song every night, even though you're not entirely sure it's in a real language. You're all learning together. One morning, the baby smiles for the first time. Maybe it's gas, maybe it's magic. Either way, you freeze. Then you shout. Then you cry. Then you shout again, this time with tears in your beard and cabbage in your hand. The baby blinks up at you entirely unimpressed. You don't care. That half smile, lopsided, gummy, fleeting. It's your favorite moment so far. The villagers, of course, waste no time. They come bearing gifts, advice, and confusing opinions. The blacksmith drops off a carved wooden spoon and tells you to rub garlic on the baby's forehead for strength. The baker offers a lullaby that involves 3 ducks and a questionable moral about never trusting frogs. The midwife returns with a bottle of something green and smelly and says, "Don't ask, just dab it." You dab it. Your home changes. It's filled now with new sounds, new scents, new chaos. Cradles creak, toys pile up. Someone always seems to be crying, and occasionally it's you. You discover things, like how fast babies grow, how little sleep a human can survive on, how soothing it is to press your cheek to a tiny chest and listen to a heartbeat that wasn't there a season ago. You also discover fear, the kind that sneaks in at night whispering, "Are we doing this right?" But then, just as quickly, it's drowned out by the sight of your partner holding the baby. Both of them breathing in sync, both of them safe in a world you helped build. You take walks together now, slow ones. You carry the baby bundled close, their breath warm against your chest, their little hands grasping at the string on your tunic like they're trying to tie themselves to you forever. You talk low and soft, about nothing, about everything. One evening, as the sun slips beneath the hills like a coin disappearing in a magician's hand, you turn to your partner and whisper, "Are we still us?" They pause, then smile. "Yes, just more." And they're right. You are still you. Still the ones who danced badly in the rain, who stole glances near the well, who learned to love each other between goats and soup and the ache of long winters. But now, you are also parents. You are shelter. You are lullaby. You are home. And as you step back into your cottage, firelight flickering across walls that have never held so much life, you realize something else. You haven't lost anything. You've only made more space. Your days become a symphony of small sounds. The rustle of swaddling cloth, the gurgle of a sleepy yawn, the creak of the cradle, the quiet thunk of your forehead hitting the table as you try to stay awake during a midnight feeding. But you do stay awake. You both do, not because you have to, though you do, but because somehow in the fatigue and the blur and the milk-stained tunics you've fallen in love all over again. With the baby, yes, but also with each other. There's something about watching your partner cradle a tiny life in one arm while stirring porridge with the other that makes your heart feel like a bread loaf too big for its pan. It rises. Sometimes when they're asleep, both of them, you just sit there, watching, listening, learning the new shapes of your life. Your home has changed again, not physically, just spiritually. Everything has a new weight now. The door creaks differently. The fire crackles more softly. Even your own footsteps have become careful, like you're walking inside a prayer you don't want to wake too suddenly. The baby begins to coo. Not real words, just noises that feel like questions. You answer them all. Yes, the sun is warm. No, I don't know why the goat stares like that. Yes, your nose is perfect. Thanks for noticing. Your neighbors keep dropping by. Some bring gifts, soup, buttons, advice wrapped in superstition. Others bring expectations. Will you have another? Will you teach them to weave? Will you name the next one after my great-aunt Mildgert? You smile, you nod. You carefully avoid committing to anything involving Meldgert. One day, while sweeping under the table, you find a sock the baby hasn't worn in weeks. You hold it up, tiny, crooked, soft. Your partner sees it and starts to cry. You sit with them. Not because they need cheering up, but because some moments just ask for stillness, for presence. You're both realizing it now. How quickly it goes. How this season with its sleepless nights and milk-sweet mornings is already passing beneath your feet like spring water over stones. You start writing things down, not in fancy script, just notes on scraps of parchment, tiny stories. Today they sneezed so hard they scared themselves. First laugh sounded like a goose hiccup. Slept for 3 hours. We wept with joy. You put the notes in a jar. Maybe one day they'll read them. Maybe not. But the act of writing feels like holding time still for a heartbeat. Sometimes you and your partner whisper dreams, not big ones. Just the kind that bloom in quiet soil. What games you'll teach. What bedtime stories you'll invent. How you'll explain thunder. And one night curled together by the fire, you ask, do you think they'll remember this us? This house? These days? Your partner's quiet for a while. Then they say, maybe not the details, but I hope they remember the feeling. You nod. Because that's what you built here. Not just a home, not just a family, but a feeling. A sense of safety stitched into every moment. A kind of warmth that lives in soup bowls and soft songs, in the way two people hold each other up without ever saying, I'm tired. That night you place the baby in the cradle. They stir once, then settle. You and your partner watch them sleep, their chest rising and falling like a tide too small to drown in. You hold hands. You sit in silence, and you both know. You're not just raising a child. You're growing something sacred together. The seasons begin to shift again. The sun lingers longer at the edge of the sky. The wind softens. The first green shoots poke through the soil like shy greetings. And your baby, your once tiny, once blinking, once mostly noise baby, has discovered their feet. And they are furious about it. Not because walking is hard, but because not being able to walk yet seems like the world's worst joke. They kick. They wobble. They launch themselves backward with the confidence of a knight charging into battle and the coordination of a sack of flour tied to a broomstick. You and your partner cheer them on like they've just invented gravity, almost. So close. No, don't chew that. Your life becomes a dance of caution and awe. You baby-proof everything with a level of paranoia once reserved for wandering bears and sharp turnips. You pad the corners. You raise the hearth grate. You invent a complex pulley system involving cheese to keep the goat outside where it belongs. And still your child finds a way. They crawl, they babble. They somehow get jam in their ear, even though there was no jam in the house. You and your partner exchange long, tired, astonished looks on a near-daily basis. Did you teach them that? No. Did you? Is it possible the goat is teaching them things? And through it all, something begins to change again. Not just your routines, but you. You're more patient now, not always, but often. You've learned to breathe through chaos, to laugh when plans fall apart, to accept that your tunic will always smell like porridge. You and your partner have new roles now. Sometimes they're the soft voice. Sometimes you are. Sometimes you do the rocking. Sometimes they do the singing. Sometimes neither of you does anything, and you just sit together watching your child pull a wooden spoon out of the firewood pile like it's Excalibur. And those moments, those silly, quiet, beautiful moments are becoming your favorite kind. Your neighbors still visit. Some offer help, some offer judgment, most offer snacks. You're grateful for all of it. Because even when you're tired, especially when you're tired, you feel it, that you are not doing this alone. Your child begins to talk, not in full sentences, not yet, but in words, real ones. Ma, da, no goat, said with suspicious enthusiasm. You repeat them back, again and again, until they're not just sounds, but songs you hum, even when your arms are empty. One evening, while folding laundry in the golden hush before supper, you hear it. A new word, home. Your partner freezes. You freeze. Your child smiles, unaware of the seismic shift they've caused in your chest. You kneel. You smile back. You say it with them. Home. And in that moment, every tired night, every teary hour, every scraped knee and burnt stew, all of it folds into something whole. Because that's what this is now. Not just survival, not just routine, but home. Messy, chaotic, glorious. And yours. You scoop your child into your arms. Your partner joins you, the three of you swaying gently in the warm light like a single flame sheltered against the dark. And outside, the seasons keep turning. But inside, something stays still, just long enough to whisper, "You've made it this far, and the rest you'll figure it out, together." With spring comes the first real adventure. Not a grand quest, not a dragon, but a walk. A proper walk, three of you, one basket, one shared blanket. One child with a sense of direction, like a squirrel on a mission, and the stamina of someone who has napped twice today already. You don't go far. Just beyond the edge of the village, past the old fence that moans when the wind flirts with it, past the blackberry brambles, past the spot where you once carved a heart into a tree and forgot which tree it was. The air smells like everything waking up at once. Wet earth, budding flowers, smoke from distant cook fires. You point things out as you walk. That's a crow. That's where the neighbors had their wedding. That's not edible no matter what your uncle says. Your child nods solemnly, chewing on a bit of grass, with the intensity of someone preparing a culinary review. Your partner walks beside you, eyes squinting into the sun, their smile tucked between two dimples you've always loved, and now see echoed in your child's face. You spread the blanket near a fallen log and share lunch. Bread, cheese, an apple that refuses to slice politely. It's nothing fancy, but the child eats like it's a feast, declaring every crumb worthy of applause. Afterward, they wobble toward a patch of flowers and sit down hard laughing. You and your partner exchange a look that says, "We made this." Not just the child, the moment, the peace, the slow exhale of being together in the open air, safe, fed, loved. You stay until the sun dips low, until the shadows stretch like yawns across the grass. On the way home, your child rides on your back, fingers tangled in your collar, their warm breath soft against your neck. You hum a lullaby. Your partner hums harmony. You don't remember when you learned to sing in sync. It just happened, like everything else. Back at home, you light the fire. Your child claps twice, convinced this is a magic trick. You all laugh. You eat soup. You spill soup. You declare the soup a victory. Later that night, after the baby's asleep and the stars hang low enough to almost touch you and your partner sit outside, shoulders touching, feet stretched toward the dying embers of the day, they lean over and whisper, "Remember our first walk, you do. It was awkward. Your feet were too big. Their smile was too shy. A goat chased you halfway through it." You laugh. "We've come a long way." They nod. "And we're still walking, and it's true. Even now, with the cradle full and the pantry half full and the future as foggy as spring mornings, you're still walking." Together, you head inside, close the door behind you, check the latch twice. And for the first time in a long time, the night feels easy, not quiet. Your child will see to that. Not perfect. There's soup on the ceiling, but easy. You curl into bed, your partner already half asleep, murmuring something about sheep and raisins. You whisper, "Thank you." They squeeze your hand, and the stars outside blink softly as if to say, "You're doing just fine." Children grow like weeds, messy, unpredictable, and often in places you didn't expect. One day they fit in the crook of your arm. The next they're standing on the table declaring war on the spoon. Yours is no different. They learn to walk with the grace of a newly born goat. Lots of wobbling, dramatic falls and occasional triumphant squeals that echo through the house like a rooster singing opera. And suddenly everything is a game. Doors are fascinating, buckets are magical, shadows are friends, and socks are the enemy. You try to keep up. You invent songs to make chores fun. You narrate every action like a bard describing a quest. Behold the mighty spoon, slayer of porridge. Watch now as the noble parent changes the ninth diaper of the day without crying. Sometimes it works. Sometimes you just sit on the floor surrounded by toys, crumbs, and mild despair, while your partner gently sets down a mug of tea and says, "We're still alive, that counts." You nod, because they're right. Your world is smaller now, but no less vast. Your entire universe fits inside four walls and somehow still manages to feel like it's spinning out of control when the baby finds the bag of flour. And yet you laugh more than you used to. Not because life is easier, but because you've surrendered to its absurdity. You and your partner speak fluent eye contact now. You can say entire sentences with a single look across the room. They pooped again. Yes, it's in their hair. No, I don't know how. The village watches with affection and mild horror. Elderly neighbors shake their heads fondly. Teenagers stare like you've contracted some kind of adorable madness. Children visit to teach your child new words you'd rather they didn't. Fart cake, for instance, enters your household vocabulary with surprising permanence. But even chaos has rhythm. You wake, you cook, you soothe, you play, you clean, you chase, you soothe again. You find joy in little things. A new tooth, a nap that lasts longer than 10 minutes, a hug that's offered without prompting. One night while your child is asleep, and the moon is high and full, like a belly ready to burst with stories, you and your partner lie side by side staring at the ceiling beams. Do you ever miss the quiet, they ask? You think for a moment. Then you say, I miss thinking full thoughts. They laugh, quietly. Then, but I wouldn't trade this. You turn your head, look at them. Their faces soft in the moonlight, worn but steady. Me neither, you say, because what you've built together, this noisy, sticky, miraculous life, isn't just survival, it's legacy. Not in the grand history book way, but in the real way. A hand reached for in the dark. A giggle shared over burnt toast. A name murmured by a child just before sleep. And when you rise the next morning, sleepy, disheveled, with a child standing on your chest shouting, "Die!" You don't sigh. Well, maybe you do. But you also smile. Because this is what love looks like now. Not perfect, not polished. Just present. And if someone were to ask you how it's going, you'd say, it's loud, it's hard, it's everything. And you wouldn't change a thing. Summer deepens, ripening the world like fruit just on the edge of sweetness. The air hums with bees' laughter and the occasional toddler-sized shriek of defiance. Your child has entered what the villagers call the age of why. Why is the sky blue? Why do goats have knees? Why can't I lick the shovel? You do your best. You explain. You redirect. You lie just a little. Why do we have to wear clothes? Because the chickens would be jealous. Oh, your partner is better at this than you. They answer with patience, creativity, and the calm of someone who's already cleaned jam off the ceiling once this week and fears nothing. You are now a full-time tour guide in the Museum of Everyday Objects. This is a broom. It sweeps. This is a cup. It holds liquid. This is cheese. No, you can't hug it. Okay, fine, hug it once. There are days when your child feels like three people. A philosopher, a barbarian, a sleep-deprived raccoon, and yet somehow it's beautiful. You see your world through their eyes, the marvel of soap bubbles, the mystery of shadows, the way dandelions turn into stars if you squint hard enough and don't mind sneezing. You and your partner become quieter in your love now, not because it's fading, far from it, but because it's woven into everything, into the way you swap chores without asking, into the way you pass each other tea with one hand while bouncing a wiggling child with the other, into the way you both instinctively move to block sharp corners before a tiny head gets too curious. There's a moment one golden afternoon when your child runs through the grass with their arms out like wings. You're hanging laundry. Your partner is slicing apples. The breeze is soft, the light is perfect, and you think, this, right here. Not the weddings, not the declarations, not the big days, but this moment, this ordinary miracle. The days pile up like breadcrumbs, soft and sweet. Your child begins to sing, loudly, off-key, constantly. You build a garden together, badly. Your partner teaches them how to skip stones, while you teach them how to make a face that convinces the baker to give them an extra bun. You fall asleep most nights before finishing your sentences. You wake with tiny feet pressed into your ribs and the unshakable knowledge that your child somehow smuggled a turnip into the bed again. And through it all, there's love. Strong, quiet, undeniable. It's in the way your partner rubs your back when you groan at the sunrise. It's in the way your child runs to you with sticky hands and a flower they definitely weren't supposed to pick. It's in the way you're home. This crooked, creaky, cabbage-scented sanctuary holds you like a story still being written. And if anyone asks how you're doing, you smile and say, we're tired, we're sticky, we're lucky, because you are, and you know it. The village throws a midsummer festival as it does every year, though this time it feels different. Not because the musicians are any better, they aren't, or because old man Edric finally found his shoes. He didn't. But because this is the first year, you're not just attending the festival. You're bringing a child to it, which is frankly a whole different sport. Your partner dresses them in their cleanest tunic, a slightly crooked flower crown, and a suspicious layer of honey somehow acquired during breakfast. You try to wipe them down before leaving, but the child shrieks with the theatrical agony of someone being betrayed by a warm cloth. Eventually, you give up and declare them festival ready. The village green is buzzing with activity. There are food stalls with roasted roots loaves baked in animal shapes, and that one neighbor who insists on selling slightly fermented plum juice for the soul. Musicians tune their lutes while swatting flies. Children run wild, trailing ribbons, mischief, and sticky fingerprints. Your child takes it all in with wide eyes and a gasp every 3 steps. You see the day unfold through their delight. Each new thing, a juggler, a dog in a hat, a particularly round cabbage. Each is received as if the universe itself just threw a party in their honor. They point at everything. You follow. At one point, they chase a goose, then scream when the goose chases back. A lesson is learned. Maybe. You and your partner trail behind, hand in hand, moving at toddler speed. Meaning very fast, then not at all, then in a circle, then suddenly up a tree. You meet friends. You accept compliments on your child, half of which involve comments like, "So much energy," said with eyes that say, "May the gods help you." You eat too much bread. Your partner drinks too much plum juice. Your child refuses to nap and then crashes mid-song face first into your chest. You rock them gently while standing under a tree. The music continues, the sky pinks. Your partner rests their head on your shoulder and whispers, "They're growing so fast." You nod. Because you've noticed it too. The way your child's shoes are tighter. The way their words come quicker. The way they ask fewer questions and start answering their own with surprising wisdom. Like the other day when they said, "I'm not scared of the dark anymore because the moon always follows me home." You didn't cry, but only because you were holding a pot of stew at the time and needed both hands. The festival winds down. Torches are lit. Stories are told. People begin to drift home full and tired and sun-warmed. You carry your sleeping child back through the field. The grass brushes your legs. The stars blink overhead. Your partner hums low and soft, the same song they used to hum during the pregnancy, during rocking, during stormy nights when the baby wouldn't sleep. You feel it all again. The beginning, the fear, the wonder, and now this. This stage, the one no one warns you about. Not because it's bad, but because it's hard to put into words. When your child is still small enough to carry but heavy with stories. When they still say ghost, but now with ideas attached. When they still reach for your hand, but sometimes let go to run ahead. Just a little. You arrive home. You tuck them in, still wearing the flower crown, now wilted and sideways. You kiss their forehead. You sit by the fire, and your partner says, "I hope they remember this." You say they will, but even if they don't, you will. Every crooked petal, every goose chase, every laugh shared beneath the midsummer sun. Because some memories aren't for them, they're for you. Proof that you are here, and that for one perfect honey-stained day, everything bloomed just right. The flower crown doesn't survive the next day. You find it flattened beneath the table, crushed by a boot or a goat, or possibly a child reenacting a battle between kingdoms. It doesn't matter, its petals are brittle now, its stems dry, but still you hesitate before throwing it out. You hold it in your hands for a long moment, remembering how carefully your child placed it on their own head, declaring themselves captain of all songs, before immediately demanding a snack. You keep it in the end, tucked into a jar on the shelf, a memory disguised as compost. Time begins to slip again, not in huge leaps, but in subtle ways. Your child begins to speak in full sentences. Crooked, colorful ones that sometimes rhyme and often include completely fabricated words. You try not to laugh when they say things like, "I'm not sleepy, I'm up zoomy," while actively falling asleep into their porridge. They grow taller. You notice it when their head no longer fits under your chin when you lift them. You notice it when they reach for things they used to point at. You notice it when you look away for a minute and turn back to find them climbing a barrel to see the sky closer. You and your partner watch them in awe and mild fear. You set new rules: no climbing without a spotter, no kissing the goose, no putting pebbles in the cheese. They follow about half of them, which is all things considered impressive. You spend more time outdoors as a family, not to escape anything, just to be. You walk to the edge of the fields, sit on fences, watch the clouds get into arguments about shapes. Your child brings you gifts: crooked sticks, fuzzy leaves, mysterious puddles. They call them treasures, and in their eyes they are. Your partner begins teaching them stories, old ones, village tales about clever foxes and brave girls, and trees that remember your name if you sing to them kindly. Your child listens with wide eyes, then rewrites all the endings. The fox wasn't clever, just lonely. The girl became a queen and a wizard. The tree learned to walk, and now it does the shopping. You write them down. You and your partner begin collecting these new stories scribbled on scraps tucked beside receipts for eggs and lists of things you never quite got around to buying. One quiet afternoon while the child naps, curled up like a comma between two wool blankets, you and your partner lie on the floor beside them. You trace the beam above your heads, the one that always creaks in the wind. You remember painting it, poorly, back when your child was still a whisper in a belly. Your partner says, "Do you think we'll have another?" You don't answer right away. Not because you don't know, but because you're surprised to realize the idea doesn't frighten you anymore. You look at your partner, their face still soft with the weariness of parenting, still glowing with the quiet fire of love. "I'd like that," you say. They smile. "Me too." You don't make plans, not yet. But you let the thought sit between you like a seed waiting for rain. Later, your child wakes blurry and warm and full of questions. You hold them close. They rest their head on your shoulder and say, "When I grow big, can I have a goat?" You look at your partner. They raise an eyebrow. You sigh. "Sure, a small one." Your child cheers, then immediately falls back asleep mid-celebration. You laugh. And that night, as you all settle beneath the soft hum of crickets and firewood and distant owl gossip, you whisper the same promise you've whispered since the very beginning. We're still here, we're still walking, and we're still figuring it out, and that's enough. Harvest season arrives like a relative who brings too much food and expects you to eat it all while also digging your own chair. The fields swell with bounty. The trees sag with fruit. The village smells of earth and smoke and sweat and roasted squash. Everyone is a little tired, a little sunburned, and a little sticky from berry jam that somehow ended up in places jam has no business being. You and your partner fall into the rhythm of it. Again, you always do, early mornings. Late nights, shirts damp with dew, fingers stained from husking, pressing, peeling. Your child, now sturdy and endlessly curious, insists on helping. They carry apples in a bucket 3 times too large. They try to shoo chickens away from drying herbs by reasoning with them. "No eat plants, please." They sleepy. They take enormous bites out of turnips like they're auditioning for a medieval vegetable commercial. You don't correct them. Not much. Because watching them imitate your movements, bending, sorting, reaching, is like watching your own memories come to life in a smaller, muddier form. And there's something deeply comforting in that. Something ancient. One afternoon, you're pressing apples for cider. Your partner is rinsing beans in a woven basket. Your child is constructing a fort out of wood scraps, broken flower pots, and a goat who seems disturbingly okay with being draped in a blanket. You all pause at the same moment. The sun hits just right. Your hands are busy, but your heart is still. And you realize you are witnessing something you'll remember for the rest of your life. Not a milestone, not an achievement, just a day. A perfect, ordinary day. You smile, your partner sees it. They smile too. Your child, sensing something sacred in the air, throws a turnip into the sky and yells, "We are so alive." You all laugh. Later, you sit under the apple tree that hasn't fallen over yet. Your child lays their head in your lap and asks, "What happens to the apples when they're done?" You answer, "They feed us." Then the seeds sleep. Then new trees grow. They nod, so they come back in a way. They're quiet for a moment. Then they ask, "Will I come back?" Your partner looks up sharply. You swallow. And then you say, "You already come back, every morning." Your child grins satisfied. That night you store the harvest. You hang herbs from the rafters. You line jars on the shelves. You stack the woodpile just high enough to feel smug. The house smells like cinnamon and damp wool, and one roasted pumpkin that refused to cook evenly. Your child falls asleep in the middle of the floor, wrapped in a blanket, one sock off, one fist still holding a single apple slice, like it's a map to a treasure only they can see. You and your partner curl around them. A warm knot of arms, sighs, and future plans that may or may not involve more goats. And before the last candle flickers out, you whisper, "We'll remember this." And even if you don't remember every detail, the smell of the stew, the exact number of apples, the name of the goat, you'll remember the feeling that this was enough, more than enough. This was joy. This was harvest. This was home. The first frost arrives like an old friend wrapped in a cold coat. It creeps over the window panes at night, painting delicate lace with a brush made of silence. You and your partner rise earlier now, not because you want to, but because the fire needs coaxing back to life and small feet get cold quickly. Your child, who once slept through anything, now wakes with the sun and insists on helping stoke the embers, using a stick, a lot of dramatic breathing, and almost no actual fire tending skill. Still, you let them try, because watching a small person learn to care for warmth is its own kind of warmth. The days grow shorter, but your home fills with a different kind of light, firelight, candlelight laughter wrapped in woolen blankets. Your child now narrates everything like a town crier with a very small audience. I am putting on socks. I see a bird. It is a very serious bird. The porridge is acceptable. You start saving these lines, jotting them down beside your collection of mispronounced vegetables and reimagined fairy tales. Your partner begins teaching them songs, simple ones, often about bread. You catch them singing under their breath while gathering firewood, their voice soft, their tempo perfect. One evening, as the three of you sit beside the hearth eating a stew made from the last of the season's carrots, your child looks up and says, "We are a very good team." Your partner looks at you, you look at them, and you both nod as if receiving an award you didn't realize you'd earned. Because they're right. You are a good team. You weren't always. There were days of sharp words, heavy silences, the quiet panic of feeling like maybe you weren't cut out for this. But those days didn't win. What won were the small kindnesses, the shared spoonfuls, the hand on your back, the stories whispered during storms, the long nights spent with one of you rocking while the other kept the soup warm. Those moments added up. And now here you are, with a child who calls the frost sky crumbs and insists on tucking in the broom at night. You wake up one morning to find that your child has drawn a family portrait on the floor with coal. It's wildly inaccurate. You're a triangle. Your partner has four arms, the child is riding a bear. But it's perfect. You don't wash it off. Instead, you build a small fence around it with chairs so no one steps on the bear. Outside, the leaves are gone. The trees stand bare like thoughts waiting for words. Inside, your house glows. You bake more. You read more. You find your rhythm again and again and again. And sometimes after the child is asleep, you and your partner dance. Quietly, in the kitchen, barefoot, to no music but your breath. Not because it's an anniversary, not because anything happened, but because something is happening every day, love unfolding. Still, snow falls one morning without warning, soft as a secret, bright as a memory. Your child presses their face to the window, eyes wide, fingers smudging the glass, and breath fogging up little clouds of wonder. "It's like the sky forgot how to hold its feathers," they whisper. You and your partner exchange a glance. You were planning to stay inside today. Soup chores may be a quiet game by the fire, but when a child looks at snow like that, you go outside. You bundle them in every layer you own. 2 tunics, 3 scarves, 1 hat that used to belong to a goat. And then you bundle yourself. It takes longer than expected, and your child begins their snow exploration by collapsing dramatically in protest. But once you open the door and step into the bright hush, everything changes. The world is quiet. Not silent, there are birds' distant laughter, the soft crunch of boots. But it's the kind of quiet that makes you speak in a lower voice without knowing why. You walk together. Tiny footprints trail yours like exclamation marks. Your partner points out icicles. Your child demands to lick one. You say no, they do it anyway. Everyone laughs. You make a snow creature. It starts as a snowman, then becomes a snow goat, then turns into the king of the cold who wears a crown made of twigs and has carrots for ears. You bow to him solemnly. Your child declares him your landlord. Later, back inside, you peel off wet layers and hang them by the fire. You rub your child's hands between yours until they stop looking so pink. Your partner hands you warm cider without a word. You all sit on the floor, legs tangled, backs resting against the hearth. The snow keeps falling. It piles on the windowsill, on the goat shed, on the world outside the edges of your life, and inside your child begins to ask harder questions. Where does snow go when it dies? Can I marry a tree? What if the stars are just really cold fireflies? You answer the best you can, sometimes with truth, sometimes with poetry, sometimes with "ask me tomorrow" whispered while tucking them into bed. You and your partner talk more now, late into the nights, not about diapers or dinner or firewood, but about what's next. You've settled, yes, but you haven't stopped moving. You dream aloud again, maybe a bigger garden, maybe a new roof before next winter. Maybe another child. You don't decide, but you imagine. And sometimes imagining is the first step toward becoming. One evening, your child stands in the doorway holding a blanket and says, "Can we all sleep by the fire tonight?" And so you do. The three of you curled together in the orange glow, the storm outside whispering against the walls, the cradle now too small to hold your growing child sitting quietly in the corner, like a closed book you still keep on the shelf. You fall asleep like that, together, warm, home. The snow lingers longer this year. It settles into corners, clings to branches, crunches beneath your boots, like stubborn old thoughts that refuse to melt away. Your child starts naming snowdrifts. The one by the goat shed is King Fluffy. The one near the well is Cold Mountain. The one they fell into twice and now avoid is simply the betrayer. You support these choices. Naming things, after all, gives them meaning. The days are slow now, but not dull. They're layered like the woolen clothes you pile on before stepping outside. Each one full of quiet tasks and quieter joys. You and your partner shovel snow together. Not because you have to, but because it gives you time to talk. You speak about plans, about repairs, about the bread recipe you still haven't gotten quite right. And then when the cold turns your cheeks pink and your fingers ache, you go back inside and make tea that tastes like warmth with a little bit of dirt. Your child helps bake now. Kind of. They measure things with impressive confidence and absolutely no accuracy. You learn to accept strange textures in your biscuits and surprise ingredients like buttons and bits of leaf. They're proud. You're proud. You eat every bite. One morning they ask for a story you haven't told yet. Not a before story, they say, but a future one. You blink. Then you smile. You tell them of a little house that grows, of a family that plants more than seeds, laughter, kindness, silly songs, of a child who becomes taller, wiser, still prone to shouting, "Look at every bird," but now capable of tying their own shoes mostly, of new rooms, new dreams, and a table long enough to welcome every curious traveler. Whoever asked what comes next, your child listens, then declares, "I want to live in that story." You squeeze their hand and say, "You already do." Later that week, you find them standing in the snow with arms stretched wide, whispering to the sky. You ask what they're doing. They say, "Telling the world thank you." And your partner standing beside you simply nods like that's the most natural thing a child could do. Because maybe it is. Maybe that's what winter teaches best. Not just survival, but gratitude for warmth, for stillness, for every moment that feels like a breath held in the middle of a quiet song. And one night, as you lie beside your partner, while the wind taps on the window like an old friend just checking in, they whisper, "Do you still love this?" You turn to them. Their hair is messy, their eyes are tired. You kiss their forehead and say more than ever, because it's true, even now. Especially now, in the stillness, in the snow, in the slow, sacred unfolding of a life built with hands and time and heart. The thaw comes quietly, not with fanfare or fireworks, just with a soft dripping from the roof and the sudden, startling return of mud. Your child celebrates this with a kind of joy only a small person with no regard for laundry can muster. They leap into puddles. They befriend worms. They bring home rocks with great ceremony and assign them names like Queen Pebble of the soggy north. You and your partner don't stop them. Spring, after all, is messy. So is growth. The goat is shedding. The path to the well is a river of brown, and every towel you own is permanently damp. But something else is happening too. Your child begins to tell their own stories, not borrowed ones, not yours, theirs. Made-up tales about flying carrots and sword-fighting squirrels, and a kingdom ruled by a wise, kind chicken named Beatrice. They tell them to you in the morning over breakfast, in the afternoon while stomping through puddles, at night half asleep whispering into their blanket like it's a crowd gathered to listen. You listen to every word, not just because it's adorable, though it is, but because it's a reminder. This child, this little person who once fit in your arms like a folded cloth, is becoming someone real, someone whole. You and your partner talk about it one night, sitting on the steps of your porch, a warm cup between you. "They're growing up," you say. Your partner nods. "I don't know whether to be proud or terrified. Both. You watch the sun set over the slushy fields. You remember that first winter. The cold, the rocking, the silence filled only by breath and heartbeat and not knowing what came next. You've come so far since then, and still you've never really known what comes next. But that's okay now. Your child starts asking about before. What you were like when you were small. What you dreamed of. What you feared. You answer as best you can. They listen like they're gathering ingredients for a recipe they'll try one day when they're ready, And then they ask, "What do you dream about now?" You blink. Your partner looks at you. And you say, "I dream of more days like this." They nod, satisfied. Later, while your child sleeps sprawled across 3 pillows, and the floor, your partner pulls you close and says, "You're still dreaming small." And you smile, because you've learned that the smallest dreams are often the truest. Warm bread, a safe roof, laughter shared over a pot of stew, tiny hands reaching for yours in the dark, a quiet life made loud by love. And as the last frost melts and the world blooms again, you know whatever comes next, you'll face it together. Like you always have. One day, one season, one muddy sock at a time. Spring doesn't just arrive, it insists. It bursts through the soil with wildflowers and weeds knocks politely. Then barges in anyway, dragging sunlight and bees and the faint scent of possibility behind it. Your child wakes up earlier now drawn by bird song and curiosity. They no longer need help dressing, though they sometimes still put their shirt on backward and claim it's for speed. You don't correct them, mostly because you don't want to interrupt the grin they wear when they say it. You and your partner begin tending the garden again. The three of you kneel in the earth, planting seeds in rows that never quite stay straight. Your child adds pebbles for decoration and gives each seed a name. Sprouty. Dirt Prince, Sir Leafington. You laugh, you keep planting. You teach your child to press the soil gently, not too deep. Like you're tucking it in, you say. They nod solemnly, patting the ground like a lullaby. The days stretch long now. You walk farther. Your child runs ahead faster, bolder, more certain in their steps. You still reach out sometimes out of habit, and sometimes they still reach back. But not always, and that's okay. They fall, of course. Skinned knees, bruised egos, tears that last exactly 4 sobs before being distracted by a butterfly. You comfort them, every time. Even when they say, "I don't need help," you still offer it. Just nearby, just in case. One evening they climb into your lap, dirt smudged and sun-kissed, and ask, "Were you scared when I was born?" You pause. You look at your partner who raises an eyebrow that says, "Be honest, but maybe not too honest." You nod. Yes, a little. Why? Because we didn't know what kind of person you'd be. And now, you smile. Now we know you're exactly right. They grin, then fart loudly, then roll off your lap and chase the goat. Perfect. That night, your partner falls asleep early, curled beside you, one hand still resting on a list of things to do tomorrow. You lie awake a little longer, listening, not for danger, just for being. Your child's breathing, the wind outside, the faint creak of the house settling into itself. You think about how fast everything grows, the garden, the child, the quiet between moments. You remember the first time you held them, how small they seemed, how scared you were, and how somehow love filled the space fear left behind. You reach out and touch your partner's hand in the dark. They stir half asleep. You whisper thank you. They don't answer, but they squeeze your fingers once. And it's enough, because even after all this time, after all these seasons, all the mud and laughter and mistakes and dancing, you're still here, still learning, still planting love and hoping it grows straight even when it doesn't. And somehow, it always does. The village prepares for the summer fair, an annual tradition, equal parts celebration chaos and goats in hats. Your child is ecstatic. They've spent the week planning their outfit, a tunic with pockets for important rocks, and their performance in the talent show, which involves a puppet made of socks and a dramatic reading of the tale of Sir Fartalot. You and your partner do your best to keep a straight face. Mostly you fail. The morning of the fair arrives with trumpetless fanfare, birdsong, warm bread, and your child waking you up with a wooden spoon and the announcement, "It's time for destiny." You go. Because what choice do you have? The fair is everything it always is. Crowded, loud, joyful, sticky. The baker is selling honey cakes. The blacksmith has a new set of horseshoes that he insists are lucky. The goat from last year's scandal is mysteriously absent. Your child runs wild. They win a sack race, they lose a turnip toss. They spend 3 coins on a spinning top that breaks immediately and declare it still a good investment. You and your partner drift between booths, fingers brushing, eyes catching across crowds. It's not like the first time you came to this fair. Nervous, hopeful, pretending not to be watching each other constantly. Now your love has settled. Not cooled, not faded, settled, like roots. You still make each other laugh. You still share food. You still know how to step around each other in a crowded space without speaking. You sit together on a bench watching your child run through a maze of hay bales, shouting directions to themselves, and occasionally stopping to explain the rules to an imaginary friend. Your partner leans against you. You rest your hand over theirs. I think we're happy, they say. You nod. Messy, you reply, but happy. Later, the talent show begins. Children perform poems, songs, cartwheels, and things loosely defined as magic. Your child takes the stage last, their sock puppet flopping dramatically. You hold your breath. They begin. It's chaotic, it's loud. It involves 3 unexpected burps. And it's perfect. They finish with a bow so low they nearly fall off the stage. The applause is thunderous, at least from your section. You find them after, bouncing with pride. I think Sir Fart-a-Lot should have a sequel, they declare. You agree. That night after the fair, you all walk home slowly. Your child rides on your shoulders, half asleep, arms limp, mouth mumbling fragments of songs and soup in triumph. Your partner carries the remains of the puppet, now slightly sticky and missing one eye. You walk in silence, not from exhaustion, though you are tired, but from peace. From that rare, sacred feeling that everything is okay, you reach home. You undress your child, wipe their face, kiss their forehead. You and your partner sit by the fire afterward, feet touching, hearts full. The house smells like sweat and cider and love that's been lived in. You turn to them and say, "We did good today." They smile. "We do good most days." You nod. And together you watch the last of the firelight flicker against the walls of a life you built. One laugh, one mistake, one puppet at a time. Have you ever stopped to think that dating back in the day wasn't nearly as simple as swiping right or texting, "Hey"? If you think today's dating scene is complicated, imagine living hundreds of years ago. No smartphones, no social media, no dating apps. That's right, love back then was not just about 2 people liking each other and grabbing coffee or catching a movie. It was a real survival art. Because if you broke the dating rules in those times, you weren't just risking rejection or heartbreak, you could actually get arrested or severely punished just for loving the wrong person. Sounds like something out of a period drama. But it's true, dating wasn't always openly accepted. There were rules, customs, and social laws that often put huge barriers between hearts craving love. In some societies, loving someone from a different social class, religion, or ethnicity could have serious consequences. So you had to stay sharp and play by the rules just to protect yourself. On top of that, you needed to watch out for the goat thieves in disguise, folks who pretended to be your devoted lover, but were really just out to exploit, take advantage, or even scam you. This isn't a fairy tale. It's real history many people faced. They acted like your soulmate, your confidant, but underneath they were con artists wearing a mask of romance. So how do you avoid getting tricked? First, pay close attention to your partner. If they disappear a lot, dodge personal questions, or avoid talking about their past, that's a red flag. If stuff starts mysteriously going missing around your place, or your money's disappearing, it's time to reconsider that relationship. Some people are experts at hiding their true colors, but you can catch the small inconsistencies in their behavior if you stay alert. Next, keep a safe distance until you're absolutely sure about who they really are. Don't rush to fully trust someone just because they say sweet things or put on a charming act. History is full of stories about folks who got played because they trusted too easily, leading to heartbreak and worse. Another survival tip: arm yourself with patience and sharp observation skills. Nothing's more important than truly understanding the person you're dating, and that takes time and clear thinking. Don't let your emotions drown out your common sense. And don't be afraid to ask questions and communicate honestly with your partner to get to the real truth. Remember, no matter how many rules or obstacles exist, love is always a matter of the heart. But the heart can't do it alone, it needs a clear mind too. Loving smart isn't about not loving deeply, it's about protecting yourself and avoiding unnecessary traps. Finally, don't forget that dating, no matter what era, comes with its quirks, its awkward moments, its sweetness, and that's what makes it so exciting. So even if you're living in a world full of rules, keep your hope alive and enjoy the adventure of finding your person. When you look back at the long journey of humanity, you'll realize that no matter how many ups and downs there have been, love has always endured. Through strict feudal times, bloody wars, and now the digital age with all its technology, love remains the one constant. It's simple, small, sometimes even silly, but that's exactly what makes love so magical. Think about the old yellowed love letters from centuries ago. People poured their hearts and souls into every word using pen and paper because it was the only way to connect when distance in society kept lovers apart. Today we can text, video call, or share selfies instantly, but that feeling of waiting for a reply, that sweet anticipation hasn't really changed at all. Love makes people do silly things. Awkward gestures, long phone calls, nonstop texting. Those clumsy moments standing in front of someone you like, that's the unmistakable sign of real love. No matter how much times change, those genuine feelings remain the same. You'll notice that love isn't just about grand gestures or fireworks. It's in the small, everyday moments, the gentle handhold on a walk, a secret glance when no one's looking, or just sitting silently beside someone. These tiny moments hold an invisible power that connects two souls. No matter when or where you live, love has the power to heal and bring joy. It's the reason we believe in magic, even when life gets tough and complicated. Love pushes us to be better versions of ourselves, even if it's just for one other person. And the best part, love doesn't have to be perfect or glamorous. It can be goofy, awkward, painful sometimes, but that's what makes it real and deep. Love isn't a competition or a game to win. It's a journey of growing together. So see, no matter how much time passes or how technology and society evolve, love stays true to itself. It's a small, warm flame that brightens the cold days of life. And when you look back, you might smile and say, love really is this tiny, simple, silly, and magical thing. So never lose faith in love. Let it guide you and make your life more beautiful every day. Imagine yourself transported back to the medieval ages, a time of castles, knights, and surprisingly complicated dating rules. Yes, dating back then was nothing like today's casual coffee dates or swiping on a phone. It was an intricate dance influenced by social status, family ties, politics, and sometimes even survival. First off, forget about just meeting someone randomly. The medieval dating game was heavily controlled by families. Your parents, especially your mother or father, often acted as matchmakers. They weren't interested in who made your heart flutter. They cared about alliances, land, money, and power. So dating was more about duty than romance. If you were lucky enough to be from noble blood, your romantic options were both abundant and restricted. You had to find a partner with a compatible title and wealth. A princess wasn't just going to marry a charming blacksmith, no matter how sweet his eyes were. Conversely, commoners had their own challenges. Social mobility was limited, and dating outside your class was risky and often forbidden. Now, what did dating even mean in the medieval context? It wasn't just hanging out or texting sweet nothings. Courting often involved formal visits, chaperone meetings, gift exchanges, and elaborate rituals. A knight might present his lady with tokens of affection like a handkerchief or a poem, and she might respond with a favor such as a ribbon or a kiss on the hand if the social rules allowed. But beware, public displays of affection were limited and heavily monitored. Too much openness could lead to scandal or worse punishment. So much of the romance happened in coded gestures, secret notes, or under the cover of night. If you think modern dating apps or secretive medieval lovers had to be masters of subtlety. Besides the social maze, there were also plenty of medieval do's and don'ts you had to navigate. For example, men were expected to prove their valor through tournaments or quests to win a lady's favor, while women were judged on their chastity, appearance, and obedience. A single mistake, like being seen alone with a man without a chaperone, could ruin a woman's reputation forever. Interestingly, courtly love, an idealized, often unattainable form of love, was born during this period. It was less about physical relationships and more about admiration from afar, devotion, and poetic expression. Some scholars say it was a way to channel romantic feelings into safe, socially acceptable outlets. Of course, medieval dating wasn't without its drama. Arranged marriages often led to love, found later in life secret affairs, risked exposure and severe consequences, and heartbreak was as real then as it is now. But the stakes were often higher since marriage involved property alliances and sometimes peace treaties. So how would you survive this complex dating scene? You'd better learn the art of patience, diplomacy, and subtle communication. Understand the power of gift giving, the importance of reputation, and the value of alliances. And above all, keep your wits about you, because in medieval dating, one wrong move could change your life forever. Welcome back to the medieval dating world where love and danger went hand in hand. After learning the basics of medieval courtship, it's time to dive into the juicy part, the secrets, scandals, and survival tactics that lovers had to master. Let's start with secrets. When public affection was taboo and marriages were arranged, secret meetings became the lifeblood of many romances. Lovers developed a rich language of symbols, secret codes, and trusted messengers. From hidden love letters to disguised tokens sewn into clothing, these small acts carried huge risks, but were often the only way to express true feelings. However, secrecy came with enormous danger. If caught, couples faced social ostracism, public humiliation, or worse, imprisonment or exile. Women in particular were vulnerable. Accusations of impropriety could destroy their future marriage prospects or worse. The danger wasn't limited to social consequences. Sometimes rival families or political enemies used romantic scandals as weapons. Imagine a secret affair being exposed to sabotage alliances or spark feuds. Love could ignite wars quite literally. To survive, lovers learned to be creative. Some used code languages that only they understood. Others sent messages hidden in poem songs or even embroidered handkerchiefs. There are stories of knights sneaking into castles disguised as servants or ladies escaping through secret passages to meet their beloved. But not all medieval love stories ended happily. Scandals were common, and rumors could ruin lives overnight. Imagine being accused of witchcraft or infidelity simply because you received a mysterious letter. Gossip was a powerful force, and controlling it was crucial. So how did people protect themselves? Trust was paramount. Choosing trustworthy friends and allies who could keep secrets was a survival skill. Also, maintaining a good public reputation was essential. It was your shield against malicious rumors. Interestingly, some lovers used humor and wit to navigate these dangerous waters. Jests, riddles, and clever wordplay became a way to express love without attracting unwanted attention. The subtle art of conversation and poetry was not just for entertainment, but a tool for love and survival. And then there was the matter of love potions and superstitions. Many believed in charms or herbs to win a lover's heart or protect a relationship. Whether these worked or not, they show how desperate and creative people could be to secure love. Through all the dangers, one thing remained clear: love was a powerful force that people risked everything for. The thrill of secret meetings, the risk of scandal, and the hope of true connection drove countless stories in medieval times. So if you found yourself in that world, what would you do? Would you dare to risk it all for love? Would you master the codes, the rituals, and the dangers to find your happiness? Or would you play it safe and follow the rules, hoping love finds you within them? And that's a wrap for today's story about love, its challenges, its quirks, and its timeless magic. I hope you enjoyed traveling through history with me, discovering how love has always found a way, no matter what. Now, as you get ready to rest, remember to carry a little bit of that love and hope with you into your dreams. Let it warm your heart and remind you that tomorrow is a new chance for something beautiful. If you like this story, please don't forget to hit the subscribe button and ring the bell so you won't miss any new episodes coming your way. Your support means the world and helps me bring more stories like this to life. Sleep well, dream sweet, and I'll see you in the next episode. Good night. Hey guys, tonight we're going to follow a medieval farmer through an entire, utterly average day. No knights, no dragons, no revolts. Just mud-marginal breakfast options and one very opinionated cow. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And hey, I'd love to know, where are you listening from tonight and what time is it there? Now dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. It starts before sunrise, always. You wake to the sound of the rooster Reginald as your neighbor insists on calling him though no one asked. His crowing isn't so much melodious as it is slightly smug and irritatingly punctual. You shift under the wool blanket, which smells faintly of hay and whatever your cousin spilled on it last Lent. The straw mattress underneath pokes your shoulder blades, reminding you that it's time to face the world. You swing your feet to the earthen floor, where your toes are immediately greeted by a chill that feels like it's been holding a personal grudge since last winter. The fire in the hearth has died down. Of course it has. You promised yourself last night you'd bank the coals better, but you also promised you wouldn't let the pig into the kitchen again, and look how that turned out. You stumble toward the door, still wrapped in your rough linen nightshirt. Outside, the sky is that early heavy blue that threatens either dawn or more rain. Probably both. You open the crooked wooden door and take your first breath of fresh air, damp moss cow, and the faintest trace of your neighbor's cabbage stew from 3 nights ago. Ah, home. As you walk toward the livestock, shed your feet, squish into the mud like it's trying to hold on to you. It's not even proper mud. It's more of a gritty soup made of dirt, water, and broken dreams. You pass the stone pile you've been meaning to turn into a fence since last harvest. It hasn't moved. Neither have you. The fence project remains more of a philosophical idea than a structural reality. You open the gate to the shed. Marjorie the cow blinks at you, slowly chewing, with the patient judgment only cows can manage. She doesn't move. You suppose she's waiting for you to fetch the hay first? You suppose a lot of things about Marjorie, that she harbors resentment about the lost clover patch, that she knows more than she lets on, that she may in fact be plotting against you. You haul a scratchy bundle of hay into her pen. Your nose fills with dust and the not unpleasant musk of livestock. The wooden rake you use is splintery, probably older than your youngest sibling, and threatens to give you blisters before breakfast. You do it anyway. Marjorie seems vaguely satisfied. You glance toward the pig pen. The pig, no name, just the pig, is already awake, rooting noisily. You don't like to admit it, but part of you respects the pig. It has no job, no taxes, and still gets fed. A lifestyle icon, if you're being honest. Now back inside, you find what passes for a breakfast waiting for you on the table: yesterday's bread, hard enough to chip a tooth, and a cup of small ale that tastes like someone whispered the idea of hops into a bucket of water and then forgot about it. You eat, you chew, you consider dunking the bread in the ale. You decide against it because you once tried that, and it just made both things worse. Here's your first truth of the day: most medieval peasants did eat bread and ale for breakfast. Small beer, to be precise, not strong enough to get you tipsy, just enough to purify the water and numb the pain of existence. Congratulations, you're authentically miserable. And here's your strange but true fact: in some regions, farmers saved up bacon grease to rub on their shoes to make them more waterproof. You do not have bacon. You do not have waterproof shoes. You have regrets. And now the debate: were medieval peasants actually miserable, or have we just romanticized their resilience through a very modern lens? Historians still argue. You're too busy prying bread crust out of your molars to participate. Outside, the sun is hinting at existence behind a curtain of thick clouds. You step out back into the wet world, the earth squelching under your weight, and the wind picking up just enough to make your damp shirt stick to your back. And here it begins. The day stretches ahead, full of fields and fences and forms of physical labor no one sings ballads about. But don't worry, at least you've already won the battle of getting out of bed, which, if you think about it, is more than your cousin Bernard can say. He's still asleep on a pile of turnips, claiming it's good for his back. 3 fun facts to close the hour. Your bread is so hard this morning it might double as roofing material. Marjorie the cow blinked once during your entire speech about taxes. You took that as approval? You've stepped in mud deep enough to warrant its own zip code. And yet, despite all that, you breathe in deeply, exhale slowly, and continue walking toward the crows circling the far end of your field. They know something you don't, probably about the onions. The wind catches the edge of your tunic as you trudge toward the livestock shed again, this time with intention. Marjorie has been fed, yes, but Her Royal Highness expects company, or at least someone to stare at judgmentally while she digests. You duck under the low doorway. The smell inside is strong and familiar, a heady mix of damp wood, old hay, cow breath, and the lingering essence of old stories and livestock. The light filtering through the cracks in the planks makes thin golden beams in the dust picturesque if you squint past the flies. Marjorie lifts her head with a dramatic sniff, as if to say, "You're late. Never mind that you were here not 20 minutes ago." Cows are nothing if not dramatic historians. You grab the wooden pitchfork, its handle worn smooth by time and questionable choices, and begin fluffing the hay. It's not glamorous, but it's necessary. There's a spot by the far wall where the straw gets especially soggy, either from a leak or from the pig sneaking in at night to express his opinions. You're too tired to investigate. Your hands move automatically. Push, fluff, toss. You've done this so many times you could probably do it in your sleep. You suspect you already have. Somewhere to your left, a chicken squawks. Loudly, unnecessarily. You glance over to see it waddling indignantly past a broom you definitely did not leave in the middle of the floor. You nod solemnly at the chicken, silently acknowledging the drama it's just survived. Your sister passes by the open door humming. She's wearing the same smock as yesterday with the same grass stains, but somehow looks more put together than you do. You find this deeply unfair. You step outside for a moment to air out. The breeze catches your face, cool and damp like a wet handkerchief someone left in a stream. The sky is still that oppressive pewter gray, not quite threatening rain, but not ruling it out either. Your joints vote yes on precipitation. You return to the shed with a bucket of water for Marjorie, who sniffs it and immediately turns away, as if offended by your lack of imagination. You resist the urge to say something sarcastic. Marjorie has a long memory and 4 hooves. Let's pause for a historical note, shall we? Most medieval peasants, yes, even the poor ones, kept livestock. A cow wasn't just a milk machine, she was warmth, butter, and fertilizer all rolled into one mooing package. Losing a cow could mean ruin. Marjorie may be moody, but she's the most valuable creature on the property, besides the pig, and the pig has fewer manners. Now here's something weird. In some parts of Europe, farmers used to tie little bells to their cows' tails so they could hear when they were walking away while grazing. You imagine Marjorie with bells. She would hate it, which makes you want to try it. And here's your discussion prompt for later, maybe during lunch. Did the shared reliance on animals in peasant life foster deeper empathy with them, or was it just transactional necessity? You think about this as Marjorie releases a noise best described as existential sigh. With the chores done for now, you lean against the outer wall of the shed. The wood is rough but warm from your body heat. You pick at a loose splinter while staring at the vegetable patch beyond the chicken coop. The chickens, meanwhile, have launched what can only be described as a political coup over the compost heap. One has claimed the top and is flapping its wings like it's delivering a sermon. You half expect it to begin charging rent. You walk past them and toward the rear shed, where old tools live out their quiet retirement. There's a rake missing a third of its teeth, a spade whose handle has been replaced twice, and a mysterious object no one's quite identified since your uncle left it here after the cider incident of 1324. You don't need anything here, you just wanted a moment to breathe. You pretend to inspect a broken hoe while enjoying the relative silence. Relative because somewhere nearby the pig is grunting with poetic conviction. You hear your name called faintly from the direction of the house. You sigh. There's always someone calling your name when you've just started to enjoy standing still. You trudge back, leaving Marjorie to her brooding and the chickens to their insurrection. You don't rush. After all, the beauty of the medieval day is that it's long, repetitive, and highly unlikely to surprise you unless someone's goat escapes again. 3 fun facts for this lovely hour. The chicken in charge of the compost heap is now known as Compostina the First. You stepped in something mysterious enough to inspire poetry. You choose not to ask. Marjorie just stared at the wall for 10 minutes straight. You're mildly concerned. You pass by the well and think about splashing your face but decide against it. The water's cold and you've already had enough emotional awakening for one morning. You return to the house to prepare for your next adventure breakfast. Again, or rather second breakfast, which is just an excuse to eat whatever crusts you saved from first breakfast. But for now, the hay is fluffed, the cow is unimpressed, and the day like your tunic is beginning to sag in the middle. Back inside the house is, well, still a house. Mostly stone, a bit of wood, and a lot of smoky air that never quite leaves no matter how many windows you pretend to open. The hearth flickers faintly with the stubborn remains of the morning fire. You shuffle toward it, hoping for warmth and only slightly more hopeful for food. On the rough-hewn table sits your next culinary adventure, a bowl of pottage. It's brown, it smells vaguely vegetal, and it jiggles just enough to make you question your life choices. You poke it with a wooden spoon. The surface doesn't fight back, which honestly is a relief. You sit down, exhale deeply, and begin eating, slowly, cautiously, like someone testing a bridge made of soggy bark. Pottage, if you're wondering, is what happens when you toss every edible scrap into a pot and hope it becomes something more than the sum of its parts. Barley leeks, perhaps a carrot stub if you're lucky, and on especially thrilling days, a bit of dried fish so old it qualifies for a pension. You chew and wonder if this particular spoonful contains more straw than onion, or if the onion has simply given up. Your teeth crunch something that might be a rock, might be a seed, or might be last year's bad decision. Next to the pottage, there's a small round of bread. It's not fresh, but it's not moldy either, which in this economy counts as a win. You tap it with your spoon. It makes a sound not unlike a tombstone being gently knocked. Encouraging. You take a bite and the bread holds its shape in your mouth longer than seems reasonable. Still, it's filling. And at this point, you're not eating for pleasure. You're eating to outlast the morning. You sip from a wooden cup of small ale. It's warm. Not because it was heated, because everything in this house shares the same stubborn room temperature, somewhere between cellar and tavern floor. You drink it anyway. It's barely alcoholic, which is fortunate. Your ability to navigate ladders while buzzed is limited at best. Here's today's historical truth. Pottage was a staple dish of medieval Europe for centuries. It varied from region to region, house to house, and even mood to mood. If you were lucky, it had flavor. If not, it had texture, and sometimes just a hint of despair. A curious historical side note, some cooks in the Middle Ages kept the same pot of pottage simmering for weeks, adding new ingredients as old ones vanished. It was a never-ending soup, an edible timeline, a culinary shrug. You stare into your bowl and wonder how long this particular batch has existed. If it could talk, it would probably demand better wages and a vacation. As you eat, the dog flops down at your feet. He's not your dog. Technically, no one owns him. He just exists. He goes where the scraps go. He looks at you with eyes that say, "That smells awful, but if you're offering, I'm interested." You toss him a chunk of bread. He sniffs it, sneezes, then eats it anyway. You both make eye contact again. There's understanding. There's pain. There's carbs. In the corner, your youngest sibling bangs a wooden spoon against an upside-down bowl like it's a drum. They're singing a song that may or may not be about dragons. You're impressed by their creativity, less so by the noise. You lean back in your chair and take a slow breath. The air smells of ash, pottage, and faint hope. You'd open a window, but then you'd have to explain to your mother why there's now a window where a perfectly fine wall used to be. Your mother enters carrying a bundle of something wrapped in old cloth. It turns out to be more bread. You pretend to be excited. She pretends not to notice your sarcasm. It's a silent dance, performed daily. Let's float a debate your way while you digest. Was the medieval diet as nutritionally poor as people say? Or have we oversimplified it by focusing only on the peasantry? Some scholars argue that pottage, while monotonous, actually offered a wide range of nutrients, depending on what was tossed in. Others say that's a generous reading of a bowl full of boiled beet stems. You're not sure where you stand, probably because you're too full of lukewarm legume sludge to stand at all. You scrape the last bits of pottage from your bowl, wondering if this is the same batch from yesterday. You hope it is. You also hope it isn't. You've reached a philosophical crossroads. 3 lighthearted observations before we move on. You've identified at least 3 textures in your breakfast that have no known vegetable origin. The bread tried to escape your mouth halfway through chewing. It failed, but it tried. The dog is now licking the bowl you just finished. He's either brave or just really, really bored. With the meal concluded, you rise from the table and stretch. Your back pops, your shoulders creak, and your soul sighs. You brush crumbs from your shirt and watch them fall in slow motion to the floor, joining their fallen brethren. You prepare to head outside once more. There's still a whole day's worth of field work waiting for you, and Marjorie's probably staring at something again. But before you leave, you glance once more at the pottage pot, still warm by the fire, still containing whatever it is. You pat it gently. "See you tomorrow," you whisper. It jiggles in response. You hoist the yoke over your shoulder. The wooden beam is heavier than it looks and just as splintery as you remember. The iron plowshare dangles from a rope, bouncing off your leg as you walk. Every step squelches. Your boots, if they still qualify as such, are soaked through with mud and something less identifiable. Possibly soup. Out in the open, the field awaits like a patient adversary. Rows of half-turned soil stretch ahead, dark and wet like a moody cake abandoned in the rain. You squint toward the horizon. The sky is a wall of cloud, gray brooding and laced with passive-aggressive drizzle. You pause to wipe your hands on your tunic, which hasn't been cleaned since Candlemas. It doesn't help. You're already covered in 3 layers of dirt, 2 of hay, and 1 of existential uncertainty. The wind picks up again, sharp, insistent, and clearly from the northeast. The worst direction, obviously. It slices through your sleeves, reminding you that medieval layering is more theory than insulation. You mutter something, not quite a curse, not quite a poem, just enough syllables to frighten a nearby crow. Time to get Marjorie. She's exactly where you left her, chewing something invisible, possibly her regrets. She casts a glance your way that could wilt cabbage. Still, she accepts the harness without fuss. You suspect she's plotting, but respect her professionalism. You fasten the yoke with slow, practiced movements. Leather straps creak. The wind whistles. A tree branch falls a little too dramatically. You glance at Marjorie. She blinks. Game on. You lead her to the field. She walks with all the enthusiasm of a teenager told to clean the chimney. Your boots sink into the soil. The plow drags behind like a sulky child being led to choir practice. You position the plow at the edge of the field, brace your legs, adjust your grip, and deliver the traditional motivational speech. Come on, Marjorie, make me proud, or at least employed. She takes one step, then another. The plow cuts into the earth with a satisfying wet rip. You nod. For the next 10 minutes, you slip into what can only be described as plowing meditation. It's rhythmic, exhausting, oddly serene until Marjorie stops dead in her tracks. You tug the rope, nothing. Again, nothing. You step in front of her, make eye contact. A stare-off ensues. She wins. You sigh and pull a turnip slice from your pocket. She sniffs, chews, and resumes plodding forward with exaggerated reluctance. Here's a bit of historical grounding. Medieval farmers like you used scratch plows for lighter soils. For heavier clay fields like yours, a moldboard plow was needed, along with a strong team of oxen, or in your case, one emotionally complex cow. Let's insert a fun little quirk. Some medieval plowmen sang chants to keep rhythm and motivate the animals. You hum one. Your uncle used to sing something about a goose who married a turnip. Marjorie slows. Perhaps she's offended. The wind changes again, bringing with it the unmistakable aroma of someone's latrine from the village's far side. You mutter another almost poem under your breath. The crows on the fence post nod in solidarity. Plowing continues, row after row. The soil yields reluctantly. Your arms ache, knees wobble, and your back starts dreaming of a new career. What though traveling lute player, wandering onion merchant? You pause halfway through. Marjorie stands still grateful. You offer another turnip slice. She accepts with the air of royalty tolerating a peasant. You sit on a conveniently spine-poking rock and sip tepid water from your flask. Three thoughts drift through your mind. If Marjorie ever writes a memoir, you're not coming out of it well. The soil smells richer today, possibly thanks to the pig's contributions. The wind is trying to say something. It's speaking in goat. Your cousin Bernard strolls by in the distance basket of moss. He gives you a thumbs up. You nod. What else can you do when moss is involved? Now, for the more scholarly among us, was medieval agricultural productivity really that poor, or have modern historians overlooked the peasantry's nuanced crop rotation and soil wisdom? You're not sure, but your back is voting for more recognition. Break's over. You rise. Every joint protests. Marjorie exhales loudly as if to say, finally back to it. The field still awaits, muddy, stubborn, and completely indifferent to your dreams. Your hands are already sore, and you've only plowed, 4 furrows? Maybe 5 if you count the one that curved dramatically when Marjorie decided to chase a butterfly. You stare at the field, then your hands, then Marjorie, who's now chewing the exact same patch of grass she snubbed 20 minutes ago. The ground today feels especially hostile. Every push of the plow sends tremors through your arms into your shoulders, and finally into the depths of your soul. You dig in your heels and lean forward. The blade slices through another clay-thick chunk of earth grudgingly. You'd be more grateful if it didn't smell like wet mushroom and old sock. You wipe your forehead with your sleeve. Bad idea. The sleeve is wetter than your forehead. Now both are damp and lightly decorated with dirt. Medieval skincare exfoliation by accident. Marjorie lurches forward with the grace of a drunken cart. The plow wobbles behind like a canoe in pudding one that might tip and bite. Honestly, wouldn't be surprised. There's a pile of stones near the field's center you've been ignoring since spring. You know it's there. Marjorie knows it's there. You've both agreed to pretend otherwise, until now. The plow blade smacks into one with a theatrical halt, like it just remembered it left the oven on. You stumble, catch yourself, and release a sound that qualifies as profanity in 4 languages, none of which have been invented yet. Marjorie glances back slowly. Her expression says, I could have warned you. You kneel to move the stones one by one. They're cold, awkward, and shaped like architectural regrets. Your fingernails turn gray. You try not to think about worms. You fail. One stone has moss shaped like a duck. You name it Sir Duckland, place him solemnly near the fence post and whisper, guard the harvest. You are definitely fine. Completely sane. Definitely. With the stones cleared, you plow on. The lines you cut aren't straight, they wiggle slightly like they were drawn by a nervous artist. But that's okay. Straightness is for show-offs and people with two cows. Historical checkpoint. Plowing was so central to medieval peasant life that festivals and superstitions marked its beginning. Some blessed the first furrow, others salted it to ward off evil. You consider a blessing, but all you have is a lukewarm turnip in your pocket and a biting sense of irony. You notice tiny shoots pushing through the soil. Winter barley weeds. Last season's regrets reincarnated. You crouch peer closer. Their thin trembling, unsure. Like you pat the earth gently and whisper, "You're doing great." They don't respond, but you feel a little better anyway. The next patch of field is tougher. You drive the plow harder. Your palms blister. A splinter has set up permanent residence. Your back issues a formal protest. You wonder what if you were a merchant's apprentice or a wandering storyteller or a monk. Monks get naps and wine. You, on the other hand, get windburn and a cow with opinions. Marjorie snorts loud and theatrical, then resumes walking like she invented the idea. You follow behind, step drag grunt. Repeat, again and again. Quirky historical footnote. Some medieval fields had names reflecting how awful they were to plow. Real ones like the Devil's Elbow, Break Your Back Hill, and Yes, No One Comes Here Twice. You look around and christen yours Mud Regret Hollow. You pause, realizing you've just completed nearly 2 whole furrows without complaining. Growth. And now, for our academic pondering of the hour, were medieval tools truly inefficient, or were they a product of sustainable ingenuity balanced with limited resources? You consider this while Marjorie chews a stick for no discernible reason. The light shifts golden beams cutting through mist, painting the mud in poetry. You stand in the middle of your crooked furrows, hair stuck to your temple shirt, stuck to your spine, and realize you've been plowing for hours and still haven't reached the tree stump you swore you'd remove last summer. It has mushrooms now. You name them. Sir Spore, Lady Lickin', Lord, I'll get to it later. 3 bonus absurdities for the hour. Your last furrow curved so much you've invented the dirt cul-de-sac. Marjorie tripped, then glared at the ground like it owed her money. You have dirt under your fingernails that spells Y in cursive. You lean on the plow. It squeaks, judging you. Birds call out from the trees like they're placing bets on your stamina. You wipe your forehead again, still damp. And off you go, step, drag, sigh, plowing not just a field but another stubborn, honest hour in your thoroughly average medieval life.